Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everybody. It's been a minute. Roll for Combat says he's so tiny. That is true because I have a different lens on my camera. If you may recall, I was doing some filming at Gen Con and for a Roll for Combat, and Steven knows this. He's in the chat. We had a very little time. We had a little bit of time, a little bit of space between us and the wall. So I had to use a very wide lens so I could get in Steven along with Dan Ayub and his friend John Statz. And since it was really close to the wall, I had to use a really wide lens. And I didn't change it when I put it back onto my thing. So I'm using my widest lens. This is a 16 millimeter lens, so it's quite wide, as they say. Yes, this is true. Hey, Dr. Waite says Space Narwhals and I are celebrating our anniversary tonight by watching this stream. That sounds incredible and amazing. Dr. Metropolis, hey, what's up, buddy? He comes to us now at the turning of the tide. Dark Sun returns. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about Dark Sun. And the bookcase is huge. Yes, it just goes off into the nothingness. Forever and ever and ever. I won't actually keep this forever. Actually, the view is so wide you can see my my P48, my MKH here, out of nowhere. Normally out of view. Rising Stars. It's exciting to see the full haul of goodies, Mr. D. I will indeed. Actually, this is my standard lighting. Woodland Fellowship. It looks moody because you have such a wide view. And so it's sort of like it makes it look a lot deeper and darker than it ordinarily would. So, normally, it would probably look something like, right, like this. And so now suddenly, see, it doesn't look look much more brighter. And, it's like, you see, it looks much more friendly and everything like that. But yeah, that's why, because normally this is the normal view that you see, by the way. That when we do things, this would be a much closer view. But yeah, there we go. That's that. But if I fit it, you get this. That's right, Woodland Fellowship. That is the magic of lenses. For sure. Actually, hold on a sec here. So I should be able to. I mean, it's obviously going to be a little bit. It's going to be a little bit quieter, but this is that mic. And so now that microphone's out of the way, and the chat is gone, and there we go. It's just us now. Off into the distance, off into the sunset. So anyways, hey, what's up, Cineboss? Let's see. Southern Fire says, yeah, I do love how the books fade into the darkness as if they endlessly continue. Actually, they kind of do. There's actually one more shelf that way, and there's actually one more shelf that way. So there's that. Roll for Combat says, wow, that mic sounds harsh. I prefer the other one. Yeah, well. I mean, who doesn't? This is, by the way, this is the power of, hey. What's up, Dead On? Thank you. Freely Gang, get Bob on. Can't wait for more Dragonbane and Forbidden Lands. It does feel like it's been for a long time that we've talked about Forbidden Lands. It's such a great campaign setting and such a great system. We're going to talk about Free League a little bit tonight. We're going to be talking about Gen Con, but specifically, we're also going to be talking about some of the things that I learned or encountered or experienced while at Gen Con. And so Free League and the implications of them for me, for my gaming, for your gaming, and this channel. Free League is one of them as well. Anyways, what I was going to say is that this is the power, by the way, of proximity. You guys were talking about your paper, but so yeah, we're going to talk about some of the announcements. We're going to talk about D&D. We're going to talk about, but we're also going to talk about Fabula Ultima. We're going to talk about Vampire. I know you're shocking, Derek, talking about Vampire. We'll talk about Free League. We'll talk about some other things as well. So, I mean, again, we're not going to go super in depth, but we are going to talk about that. You can't just come in 5 minutes late and then ask that question. I already explained why this shot is so wide. But for those of you who joined and don't want to watch the first 5 minutes of the thing, it's because I had a very wide lens on my camera. Because I was filming interviews and we were in a very tight space. And so I had to get 3 people in a shot and they were probably less than 3 feet from the camera. So I had to use my widest lens, which is a 16 millimeter lens. And I threw that back, and threw that back in there. Right. Vin, see, look at this. You're missing all of the stuff. I said, yes, it looks dark and moody and wide. And it's because ordinarily it would look like this, and it would be, it would be much closer and tighter and cropper and that stuff. Anyways, Jordy says it's a good shelf flex. Thank you so much. What's up, Aaron? Good to see you on your way back. So any case, I'll bring the chat back, by the way, too, as well. So I was gonna say about the harshness of the microphone. Now, to be fair, it's not dialed in, and there's EQ settings. But what I was going to say, as I go back to this microphone is like $600 or something like that. How much is an RE20? These days, not when I bought it, but I mean, it was $400, $450. So this is a $450 microphone. This microphone, which is hanging out right there, that is a Sennheiser MKH50, and that microphone is $1,500. So. No, this is an old mic. I mean, this has been around. I've had this for a while now. So this microphone here is 3 times as expensive as this one. Now, part of the reason it might sound harsher is because, number one, my EQ is set up for this, not EverQuest, but my EQ. But this is set up. All of these audio processings are going into the same audio processing in my OBS. But the other thing is, this is just really close to my face. It's really close to my mouth. And whenever anything's closer, it's just going to sound better. So even though this is, I don't know, 12 inches away, that's the difference that can make. Yeah, what's up? Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Callum says the GenCon mic sounded great. Yeah. So for GenCon, we were rocking sort of our remote setup that I have been kind of perfecting over the last, whatever year or so. And one of the big changes I made is I use those. They're prosumer level lav mics, but a lot of people said it still has a little bit of loud noise. So I just decided to put them on the end of a little portable microphone, and just so that, again, it could get really, really close. And believe it or not, having a microphone right here versus just down here on your on your lapel makes that much of a difference. So, what chapter of Stone Top are we on? I believe we're on chapter. I don't know. You know who bought Stone Top? You know who bought Stone Top? Stephen Glicker. Ken says the Ennies could have used your AV skills. I was at the first 10 minutes of the Ennies, the first 15 minutes of the Ennies, and then I left. But congrats to Daggerheart for being there. So, again, if you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, you'll see we have 2 tip goals, a super chat goal and a tip goal. Super chat is to get Bob on to talk about Free League. Tip goal is to get Jess to talk on about Vampire, because we do have this new Vampires as well. Dadon has already started helping us move the needle there. There may have been a little bit reverb obvious. I don't think I fully muted this microphone, so that's possible. K-Tube says, miss the RFC Paper Talk Live. If you print it, then you get to choose the size. So we'll talk about that as well. Yeah, correct, obvious. That's what I was saying. I don't think this doesn't have a full mute, so there's that. As well. That's true. That's true. He did buy it. He did buy Stone Top just to collect it and maybe also to look at its layout. That is correct. Lionhead Gaming. I have a quick Gen Con question since I couldn't go. Last year, MCDM just shadow dropped Raw Steel and weren't there. Were they there at all this year? No. Wondering if they were promoting it all, really? No. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No keynote, no digital keynote, no nothing. In fact, actually, throughout the course of the entire weekend, I heard people talk about, I heard Dungeon Crawler Carl, Daggerheart, even Cosmere. Brotherwise Games was there. Not, obviously the bloom is a little bit off of the rose when it comes to, Cosmere, but they were there, and they were talking about some of the expansion that they want to do with the game. But MCDM, as far as anyone knows, does not do conventions at all. And they weren't there. I didn't know of anyone there. I didn't hear about James Tricasso being there. Certainly not Matt Colville. And honestly, I kind of completely forgot about the game until we got back. And just this Wednesday, we were talking about Paper, and we started talking about Draw Steel. So, they're completely out of it. What's up, Trauma Hawk? Good to see you. Thank you for following. Cosmere just got on target. The bloom isn't off the rose. Well, no, I'm sure it's making money. I'm just talking about, like, I feel like everyone was kind of like, okay, and next. Like it didn't really do a whole lot from a gaming perspective. I'm sure, it's got that D6 and there's some interesting ideas there, but it's really more about the IP, than anything else. Okay, let's see here. Dadon, I greatly appreciated the sales floor streams you did. I'm going to go to Gen Con next year for those. Well, hopefully you got a sense of the scale. It is busy. But although next year, rumor is that it will be a lot easier. Wes says the Mistborn books are coming out in a couple months. Yes, that's what Brotherwise Games was there, and they were talking about the Mistborn books. Osily says this is for Vampire. Turns out Vampire is third in number of books I own. Oh, you were trying to say Vampire. I own one Vampire book, and it is, I think, Vampire the Masquerade, maybe 3rd edition. There was a lot of cozy board games. Dr. Wade says I dropped Draw Steel so hard I needed to repair my driveway. It's a cool game, but I don't get your hopes up here. Are we in an age where every IP is getting turned into an RPG now? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And we knew we talked about that last year. We talked to them last year about the idea of Plot Weaver and the idea of making something more generic. Because when I reviewed the game, I don't know Brandon Sanderson's work outside of Wheel of Time. So having a core system be so intricately tied to Stormlight, kind of lost me. And so the question was, how do you make this generic? And they're like, yeah, we're going to make it generic. And they're like, when's that coming out? They're like, a year or two or something like that. But yeah, so what to talk about first? How was Steak and Shake this year? I didn't go to Steak and Shake because after we finished at the Backer Kit, booth, Professor Dungeon Master, Baron de Rop, Stephen Glicker, they all went to Steak and Shake. I did not go to Steak and Shake. Instead, I ended up hanging out right outside of the Backer Kit booth and talking with Trevor Duvall of Me, Myself, and Die for like 2 hours in the middle of the convention center. So good guy. Trevor is a pretty awesome hang. So, retrospective. So again, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll talk about some of the games, and I don't think we're going to do like a super deep dive into any of these particular ideas, but we do want to talk about some of the things. So, Wednesday, I got down to, hey, Luke, thank you so much. Pirates of Dark Water, Noble Dark, coming soon, ? Luke, I mean, I absolutely think more now than ever that I think doing something totally different for Shadow Dark would be really cool. What I will say, Luke, is, and we'll kind of get to this in a second, is that I actually saw a Shadow Dark book I really, really liked, and it kind of made me sort of redesign my whole thought process around printing. But I'm pretty sure we're going to actually try to do a Fabula Ultima book first, and we'll see how that goes. I know much more about Fabula Ultima than I do about Shadow Dark, which isn't to say that I don't know about Shadow Dark, but I definitely know a lot more about Fabula Ultima, and I've been playing a lot more Fabula Ultima, so I feel much more, locked in on that, and plus it'll be a good exercise for us to sort of get our heads wrapped around something like this. Lionhead, thank you so much. I would still love to see your take on Drawsteel's Summoner, even if they don't want to talk about their game. Yeah, they're on to the next one, right? It's all crows now, right? Yeah, I mean, our production schedule is, kind of filled. Stone Top has definitely taken up a lot of space and room, but to be honest with you, it's been paying the bills, so it's been pretty good. But I would like to, I'd like to take a look at it, because summoners are always a really interesting design space, because how do you make it so that it's not broken and problematic at the table, whether it's broken like from an OP perspective or broken just from a gameplay perspective? Or how do you kind of make it a little bit lackluster? Like I think Daggerheart's Summoner was a little lackluster, so it'd be interesting to kind of, it's a hard class to get right. Certainly Pathfinder First Edition did not get it right. It was too powerful and broken. And I don't think Pathfinder 2 got it particularly right because it was a little weird and focused more on the Eidolon. But
Scott if tipped $50. Here is my 7-part packed money smile. I'll wait for Sword World.
Scotty, thank you so much. Thank you for the 7-part pack money. Yes, unfortunately, I met Jay Dragon at the Diana Jones Awards, and we had a brief conversation. We introduced ourselves to each other, but they were off to another conversation. And so, but Jess introduced us, and I would love to, I would love to be sponsored, or even if they just give me a free copy of the game, because it looks so amazing and incredible. It's kind of expensive. And I'm on a moratorium of backing Kickstarters because I spent a lot of money last year, and of course, obviously, I don't have my job to fund things these days, and a lot of other people are struggling financially as well. And so, the Patreon has been a little bit reduced. But it's almost at $1 million, which is fantastic, awesome, and amazing, and incredible. And it just looks so incredibly complicated and wonderful. There's Jess. Jess says, we will find another con Jay is at and get you in the same room again so you can talk at greater length. And to be clear, it's not like I was sitting there doing nothing. I had some really great conversations with a lot of people while there. So shout out to Jess for bringing me to the Diana Jones work. In fact, we had such interesting conversations, and we were so in depth. And I was talking to another Derek Gilder, who works for Gen Con. He's the head of events at Gen Con, and we were just nerding out over a bunch of different stuff. We actually completely missed the Diana Jones Awards, like the giveaway. We were at the Diana Jones Awards, but we completely missed the Diana Jones Awards. So shout out to our table for having such cool conversations. We did meet another Derek. Not only were they cooler than me, they also spelled their name correctly. So, we love it. What's up, Mark? Thank you, Mark.
Mark T tip $25. More Jess equals more good.
More Jess equals more good. All right, Jess. Well, you're in luck, okay? Because we'll get Jess on to talk about Vampire. We'll get Jess on to talk about her Vampire LARP and how she reinvented the game. But I also filmed a 1.5 hour video deep dive with Jess as we went through every single one of her Dispel dice sets in order, chronological, for me to tier rank them and talk about why I hated them all. It was a Vampire the Masquerade LARP, Lionhead Gaming. Jess has been participating / running a Vampire the Masquerade LARP at Gen Con for, I don't know, maybe half a decade. Oh, okay, apparently. Okay, sorry. Vampire, Shifter, Changeling, and Mage. I can't forget about the mages, and they're traveling to Mars or the moon. I can't remember exactly what it was. She was trying to explain it to me. But, mages are going to mage. So, it's pretty awesome. I don't know if it is, but I do know from Jess that is the rule set that they still use, even though it's 25 years old or something. So Wednesday was pretty cool. We got to go to the Diana Jones Awards, hang out, have fun, shoot the shit, and generally speaking, just kind of hang out. It was good. And then the con began in earnest. And to be honest with you, I spent a lot of my convention recording audio, recording interviews with other people. I think Steven did 8 or 9 or 10 interviews throughout the course of Gen Con. And then we also did a live panel with Professor Dungeon Master where he was up on stage and he was, kind of playing an homage to Tracy Hickman's Killer Breakfast. That was on Roll for Combat's channel. And so, I was busy recording that and miking that and all that other stuff. So I was pretty busy with audio-visual stuff throughout the course of the convention. And of course, as you may have noticed, I streamed a couple of times, several multi-hour streams from the convention, including the last day where me, Steven, and Jess kind of hung out a little bit in Lucas Oil Stadium. So it was mostly audio-visual. I can say I think I played 1.5 games, including the new roll and write game for Lord of the Rings Circle of Conquest or something. And it was, so it was busy. It was kind of a work convention. I did get to go and, talk to some people and see some people. But for the most part, I really didn't get into the convention center until Sunday. There was a tornado warning, which was kind of crazy and cool. Nothing happened, of course, but actually that's not true. Like apparently the area where like a lot of the food truck vendors got blown over. And when we went out there the next day, you could see that some of the pop-up, tarp tent things were damaged from high winds and high rain. So it was raining pretty heavily. Like luckily I had my trusty umbrella, and we used Spot Hero, which I was taught by Stephen Glicker, an app that lets you prepay for a parking spot, and you get a really good discount on it. So we were able to park really close, which again, our Airbnb was probably only, 2 or 3 miles away from the convention center, but if you're parked really far away, it can be really annoying. And instead, since I had all my audio-visual equipment, it was easy for me to go back and forth between my car. So that was pretty sweet. Now, I did have a little bit of a haul. However, it wasn't my fault, because I basically went in there and said, I'm not really going to buy anything. However, Sugar Daddy Glicker, was very generous and very nice. And Darrington Press was very nice. And they kind of hooked me up with some stuff. And so there were a couple of instances when Steven was buying something and he said, oh, you have to have this, you have to play this, you have to, whatever. And I think he was appreciative of the work I was doing for him while we were there at Gen Con. So he ended up buying me some of the things that he was buying as well. And so it was very nice of him to do that. So shout out to Stephen Glicker and Roll for Combat, and shout out to Darrington Press. So yeah, so let's just take a real quick look at my Gen Con haul. Okay, let me move my keyboard out of the way here. All right, so now I already covered this on stream, but these are my Lord of the Rings. These are my Lord of the Rings Moria dice, which let me see if I have a zoom here. There we go. So, okay. These are my Lord of the Rings Moria dice set. And I bought these from Q Workshop. Now, I had first seen these from at PAX. Oh, no, not PAX. Gamma. Okay, at Gamma. And I'm not a dice guy, as you will see by me ruthlessly shitting on things. However, I absolutely wanted to buy these because these are everything I hate about dice. Okay, which is to say they are these are everything bad about dice. They are full of imagery instead of just clear numbers. Okay. Wow, they really they packaged the shit out of this thing, didn't they? Look at this thing. It's like integrated. All right. So they are, apparently it comes with something that I didn't get. Anyways, they are full of symbols that make them difficult to read. For example, what is that? Does anyone even know? I guess it's a 12. It's a symbol, but it's horrible. Whenever you get a symbol like this, is that the 6? Is that the 1? Who knows? However, what I will say is that, and by the way, by comparison, just so you can, well, okay, I didn't realize. Okay, the reason it got ripped open is because it did that thing where the tab to hang the it's like the tab to hang the thing on like a display shelf is like was part of the fold. It wasn't like, anyways. Now, to contrast this, here are the dice that I helped design from Mad Dragon. Now, I mean, come on. I mean, you tell me. You tell me which is the more clear, which is the more distinct die value. So, obviously, extremely different. Yeah, the contrast. If this doesn't sell you on the Mad Dragon dice, that I'm using the term I helped design pretty loosely here, but I mean I did tell them, I think Mad Dragon, MAD, Mad Dragon. Oh, here we go. Mad Dragon. Anyways, these are the KOLC dice for Hope and Fear. Anyways, so not only, and I don't know how well this is going to work, I probably won't, but not only are they hard to read, but, and again, I don't know if this is actually going to work. Oh, it does. Look at that. They glow in the dark. Now, granted, you can, there's enough little ambient light here that you can basically do, but they do glow in the dark. Okay. And I thought glow in the dark is completely ridiculous. So why did I buy dice that glow in the dark? And why did I buy dice that are hard to read? Because thematically, this is very, very cool because they are the Moria dice. So not only are they carved with the proper runes, okay, for the Doors of Durin, but the Doors of Durin were, of course, carved and inlaid with Ithilden, okay, which is a material that the elves of Eregion made out of mithril, which only reflects starlight and moonlight. So just like the very famous image of the Doors of Durin reflecting the moonlight and the starlight, the equivalent of that, in polyhedral dice form is them, glowing in the dark. So, so I think that's pretty cool. They are utterly terrible from a readability perspective, just absolutely garbage. But I thought they were pretty cool. So, and furthermore, you might think, oh, so that Derek can use these in his One Ring game. Well, no, because the One Ring uses custom dice. So these aren't even, that's not even a thing for that. So, yeah, anyways. So that is the Lord of the Rings, the Q Workshop. And I also bought the set of D6s as well, because, why not? Right, that's exactly right, Marksum. My love of Lord of the Rings temporarily overrode my hatred of bad dice. And I did see them at Gamma, and I was like, okay, they're making them glow in the dark. Okay, this is pretty cool. Wes says, God, I'm looking forward to Sunday again, lol. So Wes, of course, is in my One Ring game that we've been running on Sundays. Correct. Listen, I'm not a big believer in that, I think that's really silly and stupid. Also, if someone buys custom dice for their character, like, what if I kill them? So that's bad. That's not fun. Right. So yeah, like, here are, for an equivalent purpose, here's a D12, and there you go. So that's fully zoomed out, wide angle shot. There's the Lord of the Rings D12. Here are the Mad Dragon D12s. Here's a typical, orange translucent garbage dice that people have. Here's a random D20, red on black, which I always criticize the shit out of. Red and black is absolutely terrible. Now, by contrast, here is a simple tier 0 black and white die. Now, it's a standard size die, but, it's still fairly readable, even from this extreme kind of wide angle shot. So anyways, it really shows you that. Yes, I basically have Senior Citizen D12s. Shinobi, yes, because Mad Dragon made them for us per my request, because I wanted to use them for a Daggerheart actual play that we were going to do, and we still hope to do someday. And I wanted dice that were going to be the easiest to see on camera. And so, that means being very big, bold, with a font that really uses the full amount of the side of the polyhedral. It's a pet peeve of mine. You have all this space, use it. And that way people at home could really pick up on the dice, which I think is great. Okay, moving through. So that is something I bought with my own money. Actually, I bought that on a stream, and we did have some people tip and support us for showing their support for me buying dice. So, there was that. So we get that. So that's our dice. That's our Moria dice set. All right, next. Now, 2 years ago, I don't know where it is here. Oh, it's on my shelf. Hold on a sec. It was either 2 years ago or 1 year ago. I bought this at Gen Con. And this is probably like the third copy of Chronicles I own. Chronicles, of course, is the original Dragonlance trilogy, right? Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Dragons of Winter Night, Dragons of Spring Dawning. And I own each of the individual books themselves. I think I own an annotated Chronicles, which is a combination of all three books. And I bought this a couple years ago, famously written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. It's a basic thing. And of course, I bought this at Gen Con, and it was and Margaret Weiss signed it. However, this year, they released Legends. So Legends was there. I did not see Margaret Weiss, or she wasn't there, but Tracy Hickman was there. So Tracy Hickman signed my copy of Legends: Time, War, and Test of the Twins. So Margaret Weiss may have been there, but she wasn't at the booth when I bought it. So anyways, I thought these were beautiful copies of some of my favorite books of all time. And so I felt really, and the fact that I had this one and Tracy was there is like, how do you not buy the book? So gorgeous books. I don't, hopefully they show up well on camera, but they have this little bit of a raised UV printing here on the edge on the icon of the logo, but the book itself is like matte and flat. And other than that, it's just a basic, simple book, which I like. So there we go. Turn on some light. I can give it there we go, a little bit more light. They did not have much to do with the Fifth Age. Certainly not. No. All right, next. Dungeon World 2 Beta. Oh, I just realized it's on the shot. This thing continued to be a workhorse, by the way, at Gen Con. These DJI Pocket Osmos. Just incredible little camera. They've just come out with the version 4. And it is an absolute massive... It's a fantastic camera. Okay. Milnick says thank you. All right. I did up the lights there for you, Milnick. So this is Dungeon World 2. Now, last year at Gen Con, they released the alpha rules. Now we have the beta rules. This is, of course, just a quick set of rules from summer 2026. And it's got the, we got a lot of Sprout lore and stuff like that, and all sorts of other things. Image. Let me turn down the ISO. There we go. What size paper? This is great question, K2. This is legal or legal. This is a letter size paper. I very much doubt that the final version of the game is going to be in that size, but this one is. But the beta should be for free on their lives. Beowulf Reborn says Sprout lore. I mean, it should say spout lore unless there's a typo. No, it's spout lore. Spout lore. When you rack your brain, we'll really piss off Vin here. When you rack your brain for information about a specific object, about a specific subject, ask the GM one question about it. Answer the questions below and roll with +1 for each one. Oh, I said sprout. Okay. You know, Kaz is a floralist in our Fabulous Ultimate game, so I've just been thinking about sprout. Do you have access to a book or equivalent record about this subject? Is this subject related to your origin? Is this subject related to your struggle? You get +1 for each of those. On a 10 or higher, the GM will answer generously, and you or an ally gets advantage the first time you act with advantage the first time someone acts on this answer. On a 7 through 9, the GM will just answer generously. On a 6 or minus, the GM answers with danger or an unwelcome truth. Mark 1 XP, and then the GM makes a move. So they've kind of tightened up spout lore a little bit. And number one, they've moved it off of, I don't remember what it was in the alpha, but in traditional Dungeon World, spout lore was tied to your int. And now it's just tied to basically how relevant is this lore or this subject to your question. Now, to be clear, self-confessed cynic, one of the things I don't like about Dungeon World, Apocalypse World, really, is what they used to call +1 forward. Which +1 forward basically means it's a floating +1 to your next roll. You know, you take the +1 forward to your next roll, and you only use it on the one next roll, not to be confused with +1 ongoing, which continues to give you +1 until, quote, it is no longer relevant. I don't like floating modifiers, floating advantages, anything to that end in general, so I actually have never liked them in any of the games, whether it's PBTA or not. Generally speaking, I don't particularly love it. If you're going to use something like that, I would prefer like a meta currency that then I can, you know, write down on my paper or get a token or something like that. Now, of course, if you're using some sort of, you know, advantage token or something, but yeah. The issue, Mark Lore, is I agree. It's not actually that hard to say. Advantage when they act the first time someone acts on the answer. That's the deal. You know, it's just if it happens right away, Mark Lore, which it usually does, it's not a big deal. But sometimes, you know, it could theoretically be something that's kind of this hanging Chad waiting out there. But what I like about this spout lore is note that in all three scenarios, the GM answers. That's the important part about this spout lore. There's no situation where the GM doesn't answer, okay? Which is why I love it. Now, is that realistic? No. But is it appropriate for a movie / novel? You know, you're almost never going to see someone in a movie try to answer a question and then just be like, oh, I don't know. Nobody knows. Anyways, that was an interesting scene. Next, right? Yes, it's very Marvel. Yeah, it's very Marvel. I would agree with you. It's not realistic. It's cinematic. It's movie wise, right? So spout lore is always going to give you an answer. Now, you might get a generous answer, or you might get an answer fraught with danger or unwelcome truth. But you're going to get an answer. You know, no movie is ever going to waste a scene of a bunch of people, you know, trying to spout lore and then be wrong or, you know, incorrect or whatever, you know? So it's kind of like, yeah, I think it's for the best. So anyways, ooh, it's starting to rain. I can hear it raining. So that is That is Dungeon World 2. Now, at some point, I'm going to read through this beta. I did not get a chance. Maybe we'll do another stream about it. But, especially after we finish Stone Top, it'll be interesting to see what changes. It's tough for me to remember exactly what happened in the alpha, but, we'll go from there. That, by the way, was bought for me by Sugar Daddy Glicker. Next, this was actually free, and I think I was given it. I was given it because he just didn't want it. He just didn't want it. Glicker got stuck during the tornado warning in the D&D Carnival of Fun. D&D had an entire 6th floor dedicated to a carnival of games. I'm not going to lie, it was hell on earth, but it was done extremely well. What the hell was that? I have no idea what this is. Any guesses as to what this is? Oh, this was the haunted. This was the demonic infested spaceship battle scene from a Fabula Ultima game. I don't know why this is in my OBS. Anyways, very yeah. It was Panic. You were correct. It's from Fabula Ultima. What was I saying? Oh, so it was hell on earth, but it was done really well. And the D&D Carnival. So D&D was in a separate building. It was a theater. And they had all the floors of it. And the top floor was dedicated to the carnival of something. And they had 6, games. And one was a strength check, one was a dex check, one was a constitution check, one was an int check, one was a wisdom check, one was a charisma check. And if you won or played in the events or whatever like that, you got a prize. Anyways, Steven got stuck there during the tornado, and so this was, I guess, his prize. So you have the D&D, the Dungeons and Dragons coloring book, and no, I did not color it in, so he gave it to me because whatever. However, I will say it was pretty cool, or it's actually kind of cool because, and again, I don't know how well this is going to show up on YouTube, but you get sort of modern. Oh, sorry. He rolled in at 20 when he went to slay the dragon, and this was his prize. Okay. So not only do you get the modern art, but I was actually really surprised when I was flipping through this. Is like, look, you've got the classic, right? You've got the classic Eastleigh red box cover. You've got, I think they had Errol Otis in here. Or maybe it's in the back. Oh, look at this. You've got classic Player's Handbook, Errol Otis art. Or no, Dave Trampier. And Dr. Weiss. Yes, thank you. Elmore, not Eastleigh. So you've got Dave Trampier art. You've got War Duke. And sure, you've got, Tasha's that they've turned into a character who was never really actually a character. But you also then get like the original cover from Arcana Unearthed, or Unearthed Arcana from 1st edition AD&D, right next to Mordenkainen from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. The classic Dungeon Master Guide. So it's cool that they actually put, it's kind of an homage. It's mostly newer modern stuff. Oh, there's the Errol Otis art. This is the art from the push for Tasha seems so manufactured. It does. I kind of just randomly mentioned that while we were scrolling through this, but it does. It does seem completely manufactured. But that's pretty cool. Definitely a classic homage, which I appreciate. I think that's pretty neat. There's the Holmes cover, and then here's the BX, right? The Moldvay. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was neat. So I'm actually going to give them a job well done. All right. Microsoft Copilot is running. Okay. All right. Next, something I bought with my own money. Beowulf says, the way Derek just pulls out books for reference never gets old. I mean, I kind of know why this keeps getting brought up. I mean, we got it all back here, Glicker does it because I do it. Glicker put up his shelves after I had my shelves up. All right. It is the Derek Maletta Library. All right. These are in the shrink wrap. This is called The Elements of Inspiration and the Oracle Story Generator. I love cards and random doodads for session zeros, and I love, Tome of Adventure Design and Tome of World Builders. Roll for Combat says, I had my shells before I even knew you. That's correct. Didn't you get those shells? Didn't you find those shells because of Smith? Or did Smith get those shells from you? I thought you got those shells from Smith. Anyways, so this is Expand Your World. Set off for adventure with elements of inspiration. Okay, so in that case, I apologize. I got them backwards. Smith got them from Steven. Okay, I'm deleting this. Why is this in my fucking thing? The problem is it's that thing is named Bookshelf, so I keep clicking on it. Now I'm going to click on this instead, Legend of the Five Rings background. Set off for adventures with elements of inspiration, our most expansive, detailed, and dynamic tool for fantasy role-playing games and storytelling yet. This 420-card box set contains 9 tarot cards. I love tarot size. Tarot-size card decks for exploration, role-play, combat encounter cues, each from a different environment for fantasy role-playing games, writers, and storytellers, no matter where the heroes roam. So I love that it was broken down by environment. They had, I'll open it later, but they had this at their booth, not their booth, but whatever, I guess their booth. And they had examples of them, and it's super nice to show us the cards. All right. I got to open it then. All right. You got to get the wrap off, which I did off screen so that nobody has like a heart attack about like, oh my God, Derek, you're such a savage. All right. A little instruction booklet. And then here are our tarot card decks. Do they have a wrapper? They do. That's good. All right. So here we have a forest deck. We'll zoom in a little bit here. So here we have our forest deck, right? Forest cards. And on the back, we have things like Curious Creature, A Strange Melody, and Awakened Creature. A Dark Deal, An Injured Animal, Priests, Traders, A Celebration, A Festival, Rambler. Oh, I agree. I like that it's got a lot of text. You can also see that each of the cards has a symbol in the upper left-hand corner, which kind of indicates what its general theme is, which is kind of cool. And then you also have symbols down here that can be used to represent like time, weather. So, you can use it for a bunch of different perspectives. But for someone like me, when I'm running something like the One Ring or Fabula Ultima, I love being able to be like, okay, the party's going through the thing, and they have a adventure, and they're doing an overland travel, and they do a roll, and they get a discovery or a danger. Oh, perfect. We get a discovery, and it's the Fey Gate, a shimmering portal spotted between the split trunk of a tree inside of an immense root ball, which, by the way, I literally have that in my Fabula Ultima game. And, it could be to a Fey realm, it could be to a demiplane, it could be through space, it could be through time. And, I think it's really neat to have. I like cards. I mean, tables are cool too, but I love physical doodads and manipulations. And I think these can also be really fun to just be, to use just when you're sitting around and you're just trying to get inspiration and ideas. So we've got tundra decks and swamps, and not all the decks are the same size. The urban deck is quite a bit thicker. Waterways, underground. So it's pretty cool. I was pretty impressed, and I thought it was a neat one. This is made by Nord, N-O-R-D. This is made by Nord Games. So this is Elements of Inspiration. I will say, generally speaking, I think the font could be a little bit taller, but oh yeah, they were telling me about they have these runes, and the runes are designed to like they're actually rune, like they're like the real runes, like as if I know runes. Okay, that doesn't really mean anything to me. So that is a mark against them. But we do get a moon phase and a weather. So that's also on each of the things. But you can also use these like in a tarot-like inspiration, right? So like it talks about the moon phase, where it's like a full moon is a time of illumination, but it could also mean more nocturnal activity from beasts or stronger ocean tides, right? So I think that's really, really cool. Self-confessed cynic says, I've seen those runes in so many games, I guess I believe them. So that's pretty cool. I don't know. My rune lore is lacking, so I don't actually know what rune it is. All right, so that's pretty cool. And again, that's from Nord Games. All right, next. This was a freebie because I own it. I actually never pre-ordered this game of this book. I had the PDF. It was sent to me by Free League, but this was the last book that came out for the One Ring. This is Hands of the White Wizard, which is their sort of Isengard Saruman supplement, along with a series of adventures that take the players into the service of Saruman of many colors. And it's actually really cool is this takes place at a time when Saruman was not yet a corrupted servant of the Shadow. And this is actually kind of a cool theme here for oh, well, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that, buddy. Sorry. You can leave now. You're not going to get that because there's one copy of the Portuguese B4 in existence. We saw they brought it to give to Kelsey, and it was signed by like all the Brazilian Shadow Dark players. And this company or this group did the translation, and everybody at the company signed it to give to Kelsey her Brazilian copy. The version I saw, well, no. Okay, I'm saying what we saw one copy. Roll for Combat says he'll get us some. All right, fair. Okay, there you go. So apparently Roll for Combat's going to hook us up with some B4 Portuguese Shadow Dark books, which are otherwise completely useless to us. So thank you. There you go. But this is the One Ring, and this was their last book that came out along with this book. This one I got at Origins. They didn't have this at they didn't have this one at Origins, so I got this one at Gen Con. And the folks at Free League just gave it to me, which is really cool. They also gave me this cloth map of the Shire, which is pretty sweet. Made in China. If you know Free League, you know that they make these cloth maps. They are absolutely amazing and stunning. So I absolutely love them. And here we have. There we go. Here's Hobbiton, over hill, the water, the old Bindale Woods, Tooklin. Carlos Costa Cox. Well, the Brazilian publisher referred to them as Portuguese. So we refer to them as Portuguese because he kept referring to them as Portuguese. In fact, one of the reasons we can take a slight side tangent here is that I became sort of interested in it is because Shadow Dark is printed in A5. Where's my Shadow Dark? There it is. Right, Shadow Dark is printed in A5, but when we got the Brazilian copy, it was in Portuguese, and he said that because Portuguese is a longer language, the words are longer. In order to fit the layout and the structure of it, they needed to use a different format. So they didn't use A5, they used B5, which I like knew existed, but I didn't really appreciate or know how big it was. And obviously I've got a lot of experience holding A5 books, particularly not just Shadow Dark, but Fabula Ultima. They're all A5. A5 is like the new digest size, right? That's the new popular size. And and Steven was there. As soon as I held it in my hands, I looked at him and I went, wow, this is nice. I was like, I love the extra real estate. And so that kind of set me off on this whole thing here about paper and the presence of B5 and me wanting to do a game in B5. So, anyways, so we got the all right. Next, now. This is a game I didn't even know I wanted. I'm still not sure if I want it. But Steven insisted that he buy me this game. This is the Old King's Crown. And apparently it has been sold out. Their first printing sold out everywhere. And you basically could not buy it in the United States. And he said it's like fantasy arcs. In fact, it's so much like Fantasy Arcs that Buried Giant, which is the spin-off company that Cole Worley, the creator of Root and Arcs and Oath, he split from Leader Games and he made his new company called Buried Giant Games, which is a card, by the way, in Oath, which is a really cool card. But they were sharing a booth. In fact, it said Buried Giant X. What is it called? Odd Indie or something. Eerie Idol Games, and they had copies of there. And Glicker pushed through the crowd, and he said, "I got to get a copy of this." He's like, "I'm getting you a copy too." This was actually his first little gift for me. So, so this is apparently an extensive board game where, much like Arcs or Oath, where and I saw some people playing it. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I guess this was created by one person, designed and illustrated by Pablo Clark. He designed the game. He laid out the game. He completely, well, okay. When I say like Arcs, I don't necessarily mean like, space trick taking. I just mean it's a game where you have a lot of intersecting mechanics, a very story focused part of the game, which I think is really cool and interesting. 1 to 4 players, 60 to 120 minutes, which I almost don't believe, but I never believe those times on there anyways. Anyways, he did the whole thing, the designer. And this is, again, the first edition, second printing, because this is the first printing sold out, and this is the new one. So the Old King's Crown is a board game that hopefully will get some play. Looks really awesome. A tale of royalty, rebels, and ruses. But all right, Luger says it's actually pretty fast. All right. I also got, hard to see here. I also got a Fabula Ultima, the convention pin. A lot of people who were fans of Fabula Ultima. So we got this really, really cool Pin Bazaar Fabula Ultima book collector 2026 pin. Pretty sweet. And we got this when we went over to Need Games. So now we can talk a little bit about Need Games. So as many of you know, so on the first day, Stephen had a meeting with the Need Games folks doing their business talk. And I went over there because we have been, in the last couple of weeks, really pushing towards this idea of creating a Kickstarter to fund and finance the creation of a Fabula Ultima bestiary. And I've been making monsters for Fabula Ultima for my game. And my game of Fabula Ultima for the last 6 months, 7 months, is a little different, maybe, than the way that perhaps the author of the game plays Fabula Ultima. But for my version of Fabula Ultima, my players don't mind normal routine fights. And I find that the game, especially the new bestiary, which is beautiful and gorgeous and awesome and amazing, really focuses on very unique, very bespoke, very complicated, intricate solo type boss monsters, which makes a lot of sense. But I kind of want just a bestiary full of generic monsters for basic fights. Things that aren't really super complex. Things that don't require a whole lot of planning or thought to run them. The equivalent of orc, goblin, gnoll, basic monsters from D&D. And that doesn't mean that they have to be boring. They can have a little bit of complexity. But the idea would be that the game, Fabula Ultima, is supposed to be one where you just, you don't really plan and prep, and you just play. And if the party goes left, you go left. If the party finds a new discovery, you go down that road, and it's completely, you figure it out. And that means that you may occasionally end up in a fight or a combat with something that you didn't expect. The core rulebook, God bless its soul, has a section that outlines this, and it describes the players going and suddenly getting involved with some sort of, trouble and ending up in a combat that the GM wasn't expecting. And the GM says, hey, everybody, let's take a quick break. I'm going to go make all these monsters really quick. And I just don't think that's ever going to actually happen in like a real table. Hey, guys, why don't we take a break and I'm going to make these monsters really quick, but also the idea that the GM is just going to whip that out. The quick NPC building rules are amazing and they're incredible, but I think they are anything but, to be used on the fly. I think if a GM makes a monster on the fly, it's just going to basically be an extremely simple, it's going to have one attack and that's it. It's going to be completely basic. Like too basic. I want a monster that has, 2 or 3 things that it can do so that in let's say a 3 or 4 round fight, you kind of get to see everything the monster does. And it's something that a GM who's never seen that monster before will be able to run it without having to try to figure out what does this monster do? How does this monster work? Just a very basic, it'll have a gimmick. It'll have a shtick. It'll work the way that you would expect an orc to work or a gnoll to work, right? Or these basic or JRPG monsters in general, right? So, and lean into those tropes. Anyways, so this is my idea for what I want to do for a bestiary. And I was going to make it digital. Well, when I went over to the Need Games booth, I was talking with Nicola Dagoba, Nico, the owner of Need Games, and he said, and he's very Italian, and I love him, and he'll be the first to tell you this. He says, "No, you got to print it." He's like, "Please, you must print." And he was very insistent that he's like that a bestiary should be printed, and he was going on about the business case for it and all this other stuff, and he made a very convincing argument. So I kind of left that booth, that meeting, being like, okay, maybe I should print it, because if you're gonna do all that work to lay it out for a PDF anyways, why wouldn't you print it? And then his point was, if you don't print it, people will be bothering you about print on demand, and then it's being printed by who knows what and how and in what fashion, or people will be trying to print it themselves anyways. He's like, you should print. So that was kind of and he was like, oh, well, we can help you. We're very excited. This is great. We'd love to see it. Yada 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 yada. So him and Matteo, aka Pedroni, aka Pedro, on the Fabula Ultima Discord, were very in supportive of this. I went to them for their blessing. I didn't need their permission to do this. They have a third-party license. I don't need as long as I'm following it, I don't need their permission to do anything. But it was cool to get their blessing and their support. Emmanuel Galetto was not there, but it would have been cool to get his blessing as well. But he used to be a patron of ours, and so hopefully in some sense of the word, he is a supporter of us. Anyways, And that's what led to the whole B5 thing, because when I saw the B5 book, my first thought was, wow, this would be a great size for a bestiary. Because if any book should be have a little bit more real estate, a little bit more room, I think it should be a bestiary, right? Because a bestiary, more than any other book, in my opinion, is one that you are going to be using at the table. So that's the deal with bestiaries. All right. By the way, it should go on without saying, I'm not going to actually talk that much about Free League and Vampire tonight. I'll talk a little bit about it, but because we did hit our tip goals, so I don't want to ruin the good surprise. But we're going to get Bob. We'll get Bob on. I'll contact Bob. We'll get him on, and then I'll work with Jess to get Jess on. We'll talk about Vampire and Free League. And we'll talk about D&D too, but we can talk about these things. But I'm just, by the way, letting you guys know that. All right, next. Giveaways. Well, Darrington Press was nice enough to give me a copy of Hope and Fear. So I got my copy of Hope and Fear. Yay. However, they also gave us a bunch of decks to give away. God knows I don't need these. But we're going to be giving away some class packs next time we do a Daggerheart book. So Darcy hooked us up and gave us a bunch of extra class packs they had sitting around the booth on Sunday. And so, yeah, I mean, there's nothing super special about these. We know what these are. These are just the classes. We got a couple warriors, a couple guardians, a druid, a rogue, some miscellaneous stuff as well. But that was very cool of them. And now I actually have my copy of Hope and Fear, which I did not have before because I didn't pre-order it because I thought I was going to get one. And then I didn't get one. And I was like, okay, I'll go buy it. And then Darcy was like, oh, let me give you guys a copy. So that was really cool. Yeah, Shinobi, they cleverly gave you stuff to shill for them. Yes, well, look, they're good people. That is not to ever be discounted. They're incredibly amazing people, but they're, a young company that's had a lot of success, and sometimes people like me we fall through the cracks a little bit. So unfortunately, it can get a little frustrating. So, anyways, Marcus wants me to unwrap that bad boy. What do you guys think? Should we unwrap it now, or should we do a Daggerheart Hope and Fear stream and unwrap it then? Marcus is like, come on, I want to see it. I'll let you guys in chat discuss. Dadden says we should do a Hope and Fear stream. It's been a while. You know what, Marcus? Well, self-confessed cynic says we'll unwrap. I'll say this. I will do a Hope and Fear stream because we've got these class decks to give away. So since we have to give these away, I want to give these away anyways. We'll just do it that way. So tune in next time. All right, next. This is another. I've covered this on streams before, but some people have seen this. This is the Story Engine system. They also do the Lore Masters deck and the World Builders deck. I have all three of these. And I basically went to their booth and I said, hey, I own everything you have. What has come out since last year's Gen Con? And they said, these 3 decks. So I bought them. So I bought these with my own money. Basically the 3 decks, the Story Engine is probably the one that is the least useful for me and my style of game mastering. I imagine it would be very useful for people who write traditional adventures. Or obviously write novels. But I prefer the Lore Masters book, and I prefer the World Builders or the Lore Master deck and the World Builder deck because it's much more, expansive. But the way that these decks work is these are prompts for developing fictional characters with depth and complexity. It is, in theory, designed to, help you create write novels. Like for this one, Best Friends and Bitter Rival, a relationship expansion. This is a 60 unique cards for developing powerful interpersonal character dynamics that power page-turning plots. So again, it's really useful for, authors or, those RPG players out there who think they're authors but are playing an RPG instead for reasons that no one can fathom. There we go. Tell your story. Okay. So again, we've done these before on stream, but not with these ones specifically, but like oh, I love the smell of like new board game components. I mean, it kind of smells like, that new board game smell. It's so nice. Anyways, so like if you were developing a character, and again, this is designed to work with other elements of the game, right? So this by itself isn't really going to help you too much, but like, you could have somebody who grew up with, or is getting over, is best friends with, was rivals with, and again, you can combine that with other cards to, so it's like you have a character and they were rivals with so and so, and they lost touch with this person, and again, it's just it's just interesting. M. Milnick, if they don't help you the way you run games, why did you get them? And Milnick, the same reason I own a game like Ryutama. Because I think that design is in of itself interesting. And I think there's always things to learn from other people's ideas and games, and I think it's cool to support those kind of mechanics. You never know where inspiration is going to strike, and I've found these to be very interesting and cool mechanical cards. Now, again, I don't get as much value out of the Story Engine cards as I do out of their other two decks, the Lore Masters and the World Book, but yeah. Anyways, very cool. Did I get to see Evan from Nimble Company? Did I get to see Evan? Yeah, we hung out with Evan a bunch. We got to hang out with Evan a bunch, which was great. It was his first Gen Con. It was only his second gaming convention, so pretty crazy. All right. Speaking of games that I don't really play, I mean, not much anymore, they had 4 new Dice Throne sets. And guess who bought these for me? That's right. Sugar Daddy Glicker. So we've got the Druid, the Forge Master, the Sun Elf, and the Duelist. I'm not going to get into Dice Throne right now, but I think this is a very good like drinking game. Like it's not a very complex or depth. It is battle Yahtzee. It is battle Yahtzee. You roll dice and you put them onto your tableau, and each character has like a little unique mechanic or power that makes them different from the other ones. You can play them competitively. You can play them. There's now a co-op version of the game called Dice Throne Adventures, where you kind of battle the board, so to speak. I find it a very charming game, and I'm not going to lie. The reason I discovered this game was because I bought it because I was interested in the mechanics for role-playing perspective. Again, it's something that I love the idea. And in fact, again, I mean, this was a while ago. I bet for those of you who are like, wait, weren't you just talking about an RPG system where you're rolling dice and you're assigning dice? Yes. I mean, I've been talking about that concept for years. I've always loved the idea of input randomness instead of output randomness. I've talked about games like Alien Frontiers, which is like a roll and place type game. So this is a roll and place type game, sort of battle Yahtzee, but it's really, really beautiful and cool. And they had 4 new ones, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe I have it. And this is, you know, and Glicker was like, all right, I'll get them for you. And I was like, oh, thanks, Dad. So these are cool. Anyways, they're absolutely awesome cards. If you, I love the art style. It's kind of got a World of Warcraft, League of Legends, you know, vibe to them. And then if you've never played any of these, they all have a complexity rating out of D6s. So these ones are actually all. Oh no, the Forge Master is a little bit more complex, and the Druid's a little bit more complex at 4. They had a They have a Necromancer that's a 6. I think the Necromancer might be the only 6. Thank you for the bits, DM Rawlings. Appreciate you over there on Twitch. But if you've never seen this before, it's so once you get it out of the box, and then they have like a case that you can even keep it in. They're a little bit bigger than the size of a videotape. I mean, you can see it relative to the size of my hand. So it comes in this little blister pack, which, you know, locks together. So this is your Sun Elf box. You don't need the box anymore. And they all have a little quote: as long as the sun rises, our victory is assured. And you've got your little blister pack. And again, there's different boxes that they sell that you can actually store these in. And they've got this little theme. And then you pop this off. It's got these little gripper things here. And then this is your elf tableau, right? And it unfolds. And so this is your Sun Elf tableau. So every character gets one of these. And there's a lot of similarities between the characters. Like they all have a large straight, a small straight. Like I said, it's like Battle Yahtzee. And then you get your little rules inserts. And this is what makes this character unique, right? This character gets a sundial mechanic. So they have dusk and dawn. And you actually, it's a little dial, right? And you increase it as you are playing the game, right? And then you also, of course, get your dice. And every character gets 5 dice, just like Yahtzee, and they are ostensibly numbered from 1 to 6. However, the way that they are almost always created is that 1, 2, and 3 have one set of symbols. Now, to be clear, you don't technically need the symbols because it's just 1, 2, and 3. Like, for example, to unleash your ultimate, which is Yahtzee, which is when you get 5 6s. The 6 has this solar flare symbol. This could have easily just been 6 6 6 6 6 6, right? But they put the symbol on it to make it more fun, right? The same thing, and it's a little bit more like, for example, to do a radiant energy attack, you need to get 3 of the wands. And again, remember, this is unique to this character. And then you need to get 2 of the 6s. Now, the wands can come on the 1 and the 2 and the 3. So this is their way of saying you need a 1, 2, or 3, a 1, 2, or 3, a 1, 2, or 3, a 6, and a 6. Oh, I guess a Yahtzee is 5 of the kind. I guess that's true. I guess you could have a 1 1 1 1 1 Yahtzee. You're absolutely right, G Helmet. It's been a while. So solar flare is when you roll 5 6s. And you know, just like in Yahtzee, you know, you can roll, and then you could be like, ooh, okay, I've got 4 of a symbol here, and I could try to use my light staff. If I get 5 of these, I can deal 7 damage. On 4 of a kind, increase the sundial by 1. So I can then, oh, and look at that. I got 5. I can do a 7 damage life cut. So you can keep and you can re-roll up to 2 times. Anyways, and that's it. That's the whole game. You know, then you get a little thing to track your health. Let's see what this character starts at. I don't know what they start at, but anyways, you know, you track your health here. Okay, I've got 30 hit points. Oh no, I just got hit. I go down to 26 and something like that. So you got you got hit points, you got characters. And then like I said, when you're all done, you put everything back into the box. You put your little sheet card in here. You fold that back up, put that down, lock it in, and there you go. And now it's ready to lock it in. So I think this game is deliciously fun. It's simple. It's easy. It's flavorful. The mechanics are, even though they're all, they're really basic, they feel like, they feel like you're a sun elf, So very cool. Beowulf says, the fact that Derek likes this and I hate it is why we see things differently when it comes to RPG design too. I'm curious what this has to do with RPGs, because this is literally just like a little fun, again, it's like playing Yahtzee but with fantasy characters. But it's really no different than sitting around and playing Yahtzee, to be honest with you. It feels a lot like playing Yahtzee. And anyone who's ever played Yahtzee before knows that, yeah, I mean, you're making decisions, and yeah, there's a little bit of strategy, I guess. But mostly you're just rolling dice and, having fun with the little cup. I don't think this game has a little cup, but... All right. Last product. This one, again, provided by Sugar Daddy Glicker. This one was unexpected. He said, oh, I need to go find them. And I said, oh, I know where they are. And I took them there on the last day. And they had, very similar to King of Tokyo as well. And they had it. And you know what? Oh, boy, do we love Deluxe Pit with Bell. They had it, and Steven wanted to get one because they won a bunch of Ennies. So, of course, he needed to check them out. And he got one for him, and he got one for me. Thank you, Steven Glicker. This is the Legend in the Mist full set slipcover. Gorgeous, beautiful, massive slipcover. It is. I need to zoom out. There we go. She real thick. This is like Land of Eam thick. So Boyko, Legend of the Five Rings still has a roll and keep mechanic, and it's one of the reasons I love it. Legend in the Mist. Is it a PBTA game? No, it is not. This game, by the way, just won a bunch of Ennies. It lost gold mostly to Daggerheart, but it did win a bunch of silvers. Oh, it smells so good. I know doing the it's PBTA inspired. It definitely has elements of it, but I would not call it. It's more of I consider it to be more of a spiritual successor of Fate. And by the way, I felt really bad saying that I thought that this game would replace Fate for me, but then I feel less bad about it now because Evil Hat has said that they are going to stop publishing Fate. So, again, it's just an incredibly gorgeous book, with incredible art design. I mean, you can see it's laid out, I mean, on a scale that I don't think most of us could ever even appreciate. This is their example of play, by the way. Instead of, normally you get that, 2-column paragraph text. Instead, you get, what would you do? You can smell the pages. Oh, buddy, you know it. So. Roll for Combat says it hurts to look at because it's so good. Roll for Combat, or because you're just imagining the pain of trying to lay that out? So, anyways, it's an incredibly gorgeous book. We covered this, and again, I know we love doing our stuff on PDF so people can see everything really clearly. But seeing it in person as a book is quite powerful. It is absolutely gorgeous. Let's see here. What did I say? Beowulf, by the way, when I asked him, he said, "You like dice shit, mechanics, and fiddly bits. I can play an RPG where we don't roll a single dice all night, and it can be the best session ever." Oh, so you don't like games? You just like story time? I mean, story time's cool. I mean, my friends and I when we used to go camping, we would sit around the campfire and we would obviously not roll any dice. We would just, sit around and tell stories. I don't know if it was a game though. It was more of just like us vibing and jamming with each other. We had fun. I was usually drinking while I was doing it, but it was good times. But I don't know that I would call it a game. I like games. But that's fine. That is true, and that would become more structured and have more rules. But he made it seem like his exact words were, well, he said we don't roll dice, but he says you like dice shit, mechanics, and fiddly bits. So I'm assuming he mentioned specifically mechanics as being something that I like, dice shit and mechanics and bits. How's the paper? It's good. I mean, it's a little matte and flat. I like it better. I mean, obviously everything's better than Draw Steel's paper, but I still prefer the Free League paper better. I think it's very similar to the D&D paper stock. It's a little bit glossy, but it's got a thick tooth to it. But it's not or it's got a thickness to it, a heft to it, but it's not very toothy. It's kind of flat. Anyways, so I wouldn't say it's super thin, but it's normal. I would say it's very normal. But anyways, I think it's totally sufficient and fine. And more importantly, classic standard letter size. So yeah, we got book 1. We get I can't even get it out. It's too thick. We've got book 2, the narrator. That's Roll for Combat says it looks like gold 80 pound. And then I said it kind of looks like, I said it kind of feels and looks like D&D's paper. And Roll for Combat, just seeing it, says it looks like gold 80 pound. And then Self-Confessed Cynic says, yeah, D&D was supposedly made on 80 pound gold. We have a setting book, The Hearts of Ravensdale. Note, by the way, the setting book, much thicker than the other 2 core books. I love the font. I love the shape. I even love their Son of Oak emblem. It's so cool. We get a GM screen. Oh, sorry. The narrator screen. And then we also get this character pack, which contains 20 beautifully illustrated pre-made character sheets that double as posters. So there you go. More importantly, the narrator screen is landscape, which we love. I can't play a portrait. I just can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. All right. Well, Jesus Christ. Kill somebody. So that, I think, I'm just double checking here. That was my GenCon haul. So that's it. That's what we got. That's what I got from GenCon. Probably the most I've gotten in a long time, because normally I'm not really buying all that stuff. But hey, it's good. So it was exciting. It was cool. It was totally unexpected. It was very generous, very nice of the folks at Darrington Press, and of course the Stephen Glicker to help me out and buy me some cool games and get to be able to add some stuff to the shelf. The shelf haven't had anything added to it actually for quite some time. And of course, Free League also hooked me up so with a little bit of free stuff. So that's really good. Marcus relates. Did someone really steal a pallet of Magic cards at a convention? Not this year, but like a year, 2 years ago, 3. Yes, they did. They stole it off the loading dock. So that was, my convention. It was mostly interviewing people, talking a lot, mostly to D&D. Roll for Combat says, what about those paints you bought last time? Using those a lot? So here's the funny part about that. No, I bought those paints to paint my StarCraft miniatures. I still have not received my StarCraft miniatures. Apparently people are starting to get them delivered and they're showing up on people's doorsteps. So I bought them because I was like, oh man, I'm getting back into miniatures. I just pre-ordered a bunch of StarCraft minis. I'm super stoked about StarCraft, the miniature game. It's going to be so cool. All right, well, I jumped the gun a little bit because, it's a year and like 15 months later, and I still haven't gotten my StarCraft miniatures. So in theory, when my StarCraft miniatures arrive, yes. So have you softened your opinion on Gen Con? No. I still think it's gone too big. I mean, I talked about this a little bit on Roll for Combat, but let me actually pull up a map. Maybe this will work. Okay, cool. Just give me 1 second. Oh, we went back to our super wide view. Hey, what's up, everybody? Okay. Perfect. Nope, that's not it. You lied to me. All right. Okay, so this is the Indianapolis Convention Center, and you can see it here on its sort of side. So I said it's kind of shaped like an S, a weird backward S. Right now, okay, if you're coming into the can I get rid of this? What is this thing here? Okay, there we go. Perfect. How do I get rid of this? I guess apparently you can't get rid of this. All right. I thought I could maybe get rid of this stupid thing here, but I guess I can't. So right now, when you come into Gen Con, over here in the Wabash East corridor, this is where you get your, this is where you get your will call and your booth and stuff like that. And then the main exhibitor hall, where you see all the booths, is right here. It's in halls F, G, H, I, J, K. Now, obviously, during Gen Con, they don't separate these halls. So technically, it's halls F, G, H, I, J, K. But really, this is all just called the dealer hall. Okay, and this is open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day of the convention, except for Sunday, where they close, I think, at 3, maybe. And this is where everybody is. Now, I just want to kind of walk you through a story of Gen Con. This is actually the opposite, because when they first came to Indianapolis Convention Center, this is back in 2003, the dealer hall, where the booths were actually up here in halls A, B, C, D, and E. So the convention center, where all the booths were and the rows was actually up here. Now, you can obviously see that A, B, C, D, and E is a smaller footprint than F, G, H, I, J, K. At some point over a decade ago, they moved they moved the dealer hall from A, B, C, D, E to F, G, H, I, J, K. Now, what is in this space then? Well, what's in this space is a bunch of gaming tables for companies and card games and miniatures games and board games to run people running and playing their games. Now, this isn't pickup gaming. This isn't open gaming. This is, officially sponsored gaming run by the companies. So, this is space that they had to, pay for, but it's available so that people can run their games, Now, you can see that originally the dealers were up here in the small part, and all the gaming was going on down here. Well, then they switched it, and now the gaming has been made to the smaller area. Well, supposedly, allegedly, next year, all of this is going to be open for booths. None of this is going to be used for gaming. It is all going to be used for booths and, selling stuff and all that other stuff. Just to kind of give you an indication. So like this is what the other area open looks like. You can see it's mostly just long tables with chairs. This is where they run tournaments, board game events, demos, when not like quick 5-minute demos, but like you actually get to play the game. But like, this is an official event. Like you sign up, you're like, I want to play the Old King's Crown, and Erie, whatever it's called, Erie Games or whatever, is running it officially. You buy your ticket, you sign up for it, you show up, there's 3 other people here, 4 other people. You sit down, they officially teach you the rules, and it's not like, oh, you get 15 minutes in the convention center to try to demo it. You actually get to play it. Okay. So here, this is sort of another example. This is somebody in that area, and they're playing the board game. And again, it's officially sponsored. This isn't just a pickup game. These people probably paid, $2 or $4, but it's a 3-4 hour event, and they get to play it. Well, they're going to get rid, and that's all that right now, that is in A, B, C, D, E. They're going to get rid of all that, and they're going to move it out. Now, where are they going to move it? Well, they've already been moving stuff to the stadium for years. So I imagine they're going to continue to move it to the stadium. But also, supposedly, there's a bunch of new hotels that have been being built over the last couple of years. And one of them apparently has like 60,000 square feet of space available for, quasi convention center purposes. Now, of course, if you look, 60,000 square feet sounds like a lot, but, wrong one. But if you look, I mean, that's 1.5 of these halls. So, generously, halls, we'll just say generously, halls D and E is maybe what one of these hotels theoretically can accept. So what happens to A, B, and C? I don't know. Get fucked, I guess. I don't know. So the greatest 4 days in gaming is now going to be the greatest 4 days in shopping. And this actually leads to, a trend or a belief that Stephen Glicker was talking about on Roll for Combat. He pays more attention to this, and he has a better sense of it because I've been going to gaming conventions. I don't go to any other gaming conventions. I just go to gaming conventions. I really don't go to anything else. Stephen Glicker's been going to a lot, and he said it feels like what happened to San Diego Comic-Con and E3, where they sort of went from being like about a thing to sort of being like more of a marketing and money space. And so that was his thought on maybe what's going to happen to Gen Con. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. I don't know. And so that's one thing. Secondly, so that's kind of like the events that happened at Gen Con. Now, what else happened at Gen Con? Well, we obviously got the Dark Sun announcement, and I did a whole live stream about this. But the long and the short of it is, I think it's pretty cool. I'm not saying I'm going to be playing D&D, anytime soon, but I think it was really cool of them to do that, which is pretty interesting. Now for WoW. Now, look, for all the people, I know I keep changing because I was going to show you guys a couple of things here. For everybody's like, WoW seems boring. They're just reskinning the classes and they're putting in a couple new subclasses and whatever like that. Yeah, exactly. It's powered by D&D 5e. The whole point is that if you know how to play Dungeons & Dragons 5e, you'll know how to play the World of Warcraft game, and vice versa. It's an entry point for people from World of Warcraft into Dungeons & Dragons. If they made it a whole new, unique, bespoke game, it would kind of defeat the entire purpose of it. And again, it's no different, like I said, from back in the 3rd edition era when a game would come out and you'd be like, oh, cool. And you're like, oh, it's just D20 with classes. And, you know, it's the space fighter and the space rogue. Yeah. I mean, I imagine they're going to approach Star Wars the exact same way. I saw somebody say, I think it was in the Roll for Combat chat, they said, I bet the Jedi is just a subclass of the Scion, or maybe they said, or the Paladin or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's probably what they will do. The whole idea is that they can use this as, you know, like, in fact, Keith, one of the reasons I'm very hyped about the World of Warcraft game is because now no one can ever say that again, Keith, because guess what? 4th edition, you know what? Do you know what had an official World of Warcraft D20 game? 3rd edition D&D. Do you know what had an official World of Warcraft tie-in? 5th edition D&D. Do you know what never had a a World of Warcraft tie-in? 4th fucking edition D&D. So technically, and by the way, World of Warcraft came out in 2004. So, okay, every D&D in the last 25 years or whatever that World of Warcraft has been out, the only edition of D&D that didn't have a World of Warcraft a tie-in was 4th edition. So the internet can get fucked. Oh yeah, we got the EverQuest right here on the board. Where is it? Hold on a sec. You know, so I was ranting about this on Roll for Combat. I'm not going to rant about it here. But like everybody who's like, oh, I can't believe D&D is doing tie-ins. Oh, I can't believe they're making these tie-ins with these IPs. It's so shitty. This is not D&D 5th edition. This is D&D 3rd edition. EverQuest, the role-playing game. They did the same thing for World of Warcraft. AD&D 2nd edition even had Diablo stuff. I mean, do we need to keep going? This is just D&D, by the way. It's literally D&D. No, it's 3rd edition D&D. That was the only D&D we had back then. But this is all just. If you play I mean, it's got the grapple rules of 3rd edition. You know, the classic. Oh my God, the grapple rules of 3rd edition are so terrible. Yeah, it's the same rules in all of these. And guess what? They're all 20 level classes. You know what I mean? It's all literally just D&D. And they were doing this back in 2002 and 2001. You know what I mean? Like, people are being like, oh, I can't believe they're doing this. It's like, they've been doing this forever. So, you know, well, it's not even a generational thing, Jordy, because this is not just young people. It's just this current crop of people who I think act like they are the ones who discovered D&D. Like as if like D&D didn't exist before 5th edition. That's the only thing that, you know, I'm talking about, you know, is that's the part that's crazy about it. Oh yeah. We got that one right there. Legend of the Five Rings, Oriental Adventures, D20. This is D&D, but for Rokugan. In fact, Legend of the Five Rings people hate this book because AEG got bought by Wizards of the Coast, blah, 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 blah. And so Legend of the Five Rings went from the D10 roll and keep system to, you guessed it, motherfucking D20. So, and obviously, I own them all. I mean, I don't own all of them, but, you know, there's a bunch of them. I mean, there's just so many of them. I mean, this is more of a campaign setting, but this was a book. This was a series. This is a book by Margaret Weiss. Larry Elmore Larry Elmore, Margaret Weiss, and Tracy Hickman. This was their novel series. It's an IP. Guess what they made? A game out of it. Guess what they used? D20. They used 3rd edition. I mean, my point is, like, 5th edition, relatively speaking, is like the most, well, 4th edition is the most pure edition because the GSL ensured such high walls and such well-kept gates that no one could ever penetrate them down. So 4th edition is the most pure version of D&D. But relatively speaking, yeah, I mean, 5th edition is pretty pure, all things being equal. And I'm talking about, like, you know, officially supported stuff. So anyways, yeah, D20 had so much stuff. It was wild. It was crazy. Saga Edition was fantastic, Cinnabos. And in fact, Damien, Paul No Longer from the Discord, apparently is working on his own revision of it. And of course, when we first took a look, when we looked at Last Ark's Tactics Analog, we thought it was a 3rd edition retro clone. Turned out it was a Saga Edition retro clone, and that was pretty damn cool. Shinobi says, dude, D20 L5R was the most fun I ever had with L5R, even though I went in expecting to hate it. It does have one of my favorite bits of lore, which I've read on a previous stream, by the way. Yes. And of course, remember, by the way, Star Wars Saga Edition was sort of a precursor and sort of an experimental phase. Step 4, you guessed it, 4th edition. I saw Black Lodge in here. Hey, what's up, Black Lodge? From a commercial perspective, they should have done this sooner. I agree. In fact, one of the things that Steven and I both agreed with is in the grand annals of history, I'm not even kidding, and I'm not even exaggerating this. When you go back to 3rd edition, where's my, let me, do I have it? Bloop, here we go. In the grand scheme of things, let me see if I can, I guess we're upside down now. All right, never mind that we're upside down. In the grand scheme of things, I was trying to pan to my shelf here. Apparently, I can't pan any more than that. Okay. Anyways, I was trying to get to my 3rd edition stuff. But what I was going to say is, okay, there we go. There's my 5th edition books. Now I don't own all the 5th edition books, obviously. But the thing about it is, on a grand scheme of things, there were months in 3rd edition D&D and 4th edition D&D where you would get 2 hardcover releases per month, sometimes for several months in a row. I think I can recall months where you might get 18 or more hardcover official Wizards of the Coast, releases, because you would get a hardcover for, some 3rd edition book, like in a month of 3rd edition, you might get Stormrack, which came out, hardcover book, official Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons content. You'd get Stormrack. You would also get a hardcover adventure, in this case, Expedition to the Demon Web Pits. Okay, so this is a full hardcover adventure. Levels, I don't know, levels 9 to 12. Okay, so you get this and you get this, but also you would also get an Eberron book released, in this case, a 5 Nation supplement talking about the 5 nations of Galifar that surrendered, or that broke apart, and that led to the last war. And you also might get an official Forgotten Realms Faith and Pantheons book. In this case, this one written by Eric Mona, our friend from Paizo. So in 1 month during 3rd edition, you might get 4 separate hardcover, official, not third party, not Dungeon Dudes or Ginny D or Legends of Evantris, okay? You would get, Dr. Waits, yes, because, all of that was happening. All of that was happening. You were also getting monthly copies of Dragon Magazine and bi-monthly copies of Dungeon Magazine. So on top of all of that, you were also getting amazing, incredible periodicals. Now, these are later ones. This is where Paizo got their start. Paizo was a magazine publisher. They took over the publication for Dragon Magazine. So anyways, get money, pilfer, plunder, and pillage every dungeon. Ecology of the Grimlock, new Forgotten Realms fiction. Your 100% official Dungeons & Dragons magazine. That was every month. And that, by the way, is the official stuff. So that's not even covering all the unofficial stuff. And trust me, now some of that was, in fact, hot garbage. You know, like I got my Mongoose books up here somewhere. You know, everyone's got their Mongoose books somewhere, right? And everyone knows Mongoose was pretty much garbage. But the point is that D&D 5e is incredibly under monetized. Like they don't make anything. And again, I know I'm missing some of the 5e books. I know I haven't gotten everything, but like, what do they release? Like 2 books a year? I feel like I feel like it's nothing. The game, it's like the longest edition of D&D ever. Now, look, I'm not trying to argue about whether it was good or not, or whether it was great or not, right? You know, so that's not for me to decide. But like, some people loved that stuff, some people hated that stuff. But I'm talking about as a business, okay? As a business, they were making books and people were buying them. My group barely used prestige classes during 3rd edition. We were very, 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 very exceptional in that regard, because most people used, you know, infinity of them. So most people were using this stuff and loved that stuff. So, now granted, 5th edition, now, part of the reason for this is because, this is a good segue, is because D&D now gets D&D Beyond. And they don't need to publish books when they get your money every month or whatever it is. So that helps, because that's a lot cheaper and easier than publishing books. So why make 12 plus releases a year when you can make 1 or 2 books a year, but you're still getting whatever it is, I don't know, $50 a month or $50 a year from people for their D&D Beyond subscriptions. So that's part of the big change. It's software as a service. It's games as a service. And that is an excellent segue into everyone loves Book of Nine Swords. It's pretty much a given. And that is a great segue into this. From the creators of D&D Beyond. So obviously, Free League Unbound is going the D&D Beyond route. Now, Free League has historically done a pretty good job with their digital images, or their digital content. However, let's not beat around the bush here. This is D&D Beyond for Free League, and they're gonna get money. It's probably gonna be more like Demiplane or Nexus, and they want to just control all the money. They don't want to license anything through Demiplane or whatever, so they just want to do it their own. Now, am I excited about this? No. I will say, props to their trailer. Now, if you're a Free League fan, you may not understand this. But they say, push your play, and then they show them rolling dice. So, of course, your Zero engine, when you push, you get to re-roll your dice. So they go push your play, and they roll them. And when you push in Free League, sixes are successes. Ones usually cause stress or strife or something. And so you can see that they rolled a couple ones on here on the right. And so they say push your play, and then they say without the stress, and the ones go away. So that's like I do appreciate the Easter egg quality of this, which is fantastic. Now, Dadon, absolutely. They're not going to not sell PDFs, because I mean, there's a lot of things about that is really, there's a lot of gross things about what D&D does. And the one is that they don't sell PDFs. You can't ever digitally own the book officially. You have to be through the D&D Beyond portal. That's a absolutely huge deal. But I do see people already saying crazy things. Now, Free League might be cool, and they might say, look, if you bought the game through us officially, we'll give you a discount or something. But a lot of people are like, can I send you a picture of the books I bought, and can I get them added to my Unbound account? And I'm like, no. The same reason why if they release a revised version of the game, you don't get that for free either. So some people are already saying like crazy and ridiculous and stupid things. And especially it's like, well, I bought it from my local gaming store. So what? I get screwed? And it's like, yeah, you do. I mean, again, we'll see what Free League does. But the fact that some people are like, I should get it for free because I bought it once, 5, 6, 7 years ago is absolutely insane to me. Now, I don't like digital tools. I know some people swear by them and love them. But the fact of the matter is, if Free League wants to compete at all, they're going to need this, because it is a huge game changer for D&D. And as much as I hate it, this is a big step for them. And I'm not absolutely super stoked about it, but it does indicate that they're going to be putting some stuff in, they're putting some money and investment into their game, which is cool. That being said, yeah, I mean, Mr. Rickasinski, Free League does a lot of really great stuff. So, I mean, I think overall they're a great company. I think it's a mistake to just automatically assume that this is going to be like, that this is going to be like D&D Beyond. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't like digital tool sets, but I understand that I'm weird and I'm different, and that's not the way that most people choose to interact with these games. Joe, the magazine movement has mostly been sort of supplanted by the zine movement. So, I mean, there's a lot of people printing zines. So, I mean, zine literally stands for magazine. It's just, without the requirement to be regular, and it's usually a lot shorter. So the other thing that Free League announced is they are doing a revision of the One Ring. Now, they are not making a third edition. And I actually believe them. It's not going to be a third edition. But we've talked about this a little bit here, but this was licensed to Free League by Middle Earth Enterprises. Well, Middle Earth Enterprises is now controlled by a different company, Embracer Group. And so Free League had to update their license. We talked about this at Gamma. And as a result of that, they basically need to update their books and print them with the new license. Somebody asked, does this mean that the old books are going to be going out of print? I think so. I imagine they will. I don't know if they're going to get reprinted or if they're going to get the treatment. They may have a deal with them that they don't have to like stop selling them. But my guess is that the old books will go out of print. I do believe that because of the new license. But they're going to fix it. I think they're going to tweak. I hope it is a true 2.5. I hope that they tweak a couple of things, change a couple of things. There could be some game balance things. Not that game balance is a big deal in the One Ring like it is in other games. But, I think the game, it came out, 2021, I want to say, or so, 2020. So it's like, 4 or 5 years old. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer that a game should exist for, 7 to 8 years. and you should get a 0.5 edition about halfway through it. So, yeah. Now, it's funny that you say that, Marcus, because if you say Foundry is the only digital purchase I need for the rest of time, a $50 bucks and that's it. Screw these subscription models. Now, Marcus, that sounds great. I'm curious. What did you do with that $50 that you spent on Foundry? My guess is that you are playing something and using a system and using modules that somebody else created for free. Which, well, that didn't cost you anything, right? It did cost someone their labor, but their time. You just benefit from the fact that you didn't have to pay for it because they were generous and gave it away for free. So right now, Foundry really benefits from the fact that it is populated by passionate, conscientious fans. And always, people will take advantage of that. And people do it right now with Foundry, where a lot of these games live and die based off of free labor provided by dedicated, true believer fans who are more than happy to slave endlessly. But you know, I think Foundry should. I think there should be more money in Foundry, but that's just me. Yeah, Andrew. I mean, yeah, gamers get upset about everything. Everybody gets upset about everything, Andrew. So there's that. So for Free League, I'm you know, the digital news is nothing for me, but I am excited about the One Ring getting revised. Now, Vampire the Masquerade 6th Edition Alpha. Now, this may not surprise anybody, but I do not keep up with Vampire the Masquerade, and I have no idea about the new World of Darkness versus the old World of Darkness. My knowledge of Vampire is predicated around probably the 2nd edition book. I don't even know where my Vampire books are. Oh, here it is. This is the Vampire Masquerade I own. I don't know if I mean, we have to go through all the microfiction here first, but no idea what edition this is. If somebody knows, they can tell me. I can tell you this, it's really old because it was printed in Canada. There is no way in hell that anything would ever be printed in Canada anymore. But so, you know, when I played Vampire the Masquerade, it was a fairly sim heavy game. And I've talked about this at length on this channel before, but I actually believe that deep role players are actually simulationists. People who are like actors and like really, you know, driven by the game are actually, I think, very simulationists. You might think, oh, they're super narrativist people. Actually, it's just the opposite. I find that really hardcore actor role players are actually the type of people who hate narrative mechanics, right? They don't want narrative mechanics. You would think that they would, but they don't. They actually really like that the game is right. It's all about the verisimilitude, Glenn. And they're the type of people who go, you know, leave the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions, leave the events and the drama to me. You know, I just need rules to run the world, right? And let the game come from that. Kilo Mike Bravo, my good buddy, says that book was my jam. The first time I ever played Vampire, he was my what would they call it? Is it called the Game Master? I don't remember what it's called, but my first experience with Vampire, maybe Werewolf and Hunter actually were games that we had played at that point. So all that being said, I am not the vampire storyteller. Thank you, story. Of course, it's storyteller, and it's funny that they call that person the storyteller, right? Because that is inherently a very narrative forward thing. So these games have always been in this really, really sort of weird space. Well, they are coming out now. Number one, obviously, World of Darkness is now run by a company called Paradox. I think they've been running it for a while, but they are releasing a new version, and of course, it's available for free on Demiplane. Now, we're not going to get into the full scope of the rules here on this little stream, but you guys did pay for it, so I just wanted to kind of get into this and talk about this. Which is, today is a big day. We're finally excited to announce that we are working on a new edition of Vampire the Masquerade. Great. Awesome. They were on 5th edition, 4th edition. Like, they're all the same to me. Now, the version I know, right, was a D10 dice pool system. You know, you add your dots from your ability, you add your dots from your skill set, and then, you know, that's the kind of thing that I know. Now, this is being led by Jess Lanzillo, our creative director. And, of course, you may remember that Jess Lanzillo was recently at Dungeons and Dragons. She was actually at Wizard of the Coast. She was the vice president of D&D during a whole bunch of stuff, right? So this is a Jess Lanzillo production, which alone, you know, has its own things here. Now, right away, I thought this was a nothing burger, but I thought I would go check it out. So I just typed in Vampire the Masquerade Alpha, where we confirmed that Vampire 6 V6 is built to honor the legacy of Vampire. And I was like, well, so whenever anybody starts with, it was built to honor the legacy, you already know it's going to go sideways. While updating its dice mechanics, character creation, and storyteller's tools. And I was immediately like, oh, okay, interesting. Where are we going with this? So, blah, blah, blah. 14 clans, Camarilla, Sabbat, the whole 9 yards, right? This edition introduces a reworked rules edition and a deeper toolkit. Vitae and Willpower Health have been merged into a single resource. The difficulty now subtracts dice from the pool instead of raising a target number, and players are the ones to roll almost all the dice at the table. So right already, off the bat, we are already out of one of the hallmarks of simulationism and verisimilitude in systems is this idea that the GM and the players and the NPCs and the PCs kind of all follow the same rules and same systems. People who are obsessed with this love this idea. I hate it because I don't like that type of games. But in fact, as a GM, I never want to roll the dice. So one of the things that sort of like is driven about this is that these type of people, and again, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that this is what they want. They want the world to operate, everyone to operate by the same rules. So already we're out of that. Okay. We've added a beast nature tracker and revamped the humanity scale to turn the struggle between the beast and humanity into a more active, personalized system. When I read that, the first thing that popped, now granted, I've talked about this before, the humanity system in Vampire I thought was always kind of interesting. I was kind of inspired by that system when I was talking about doing a hack of Wilderfeast that sort of took inspiration from the One Ring involving and Avatar Legends. But when I read this, I thought, oh, this is like Avatar Legends. And then I see this. Players can now earn a resource called Quickening. Storytellers now have a resource called Drama, and it is play generated. This means this is a meta resource. It is narrative meta currency. It is play generated, which means it's a little bit more like fear than anything else. They can use it to trigger events, quantum events, empower NPC, and increase stakes. Vampire the Masquerade is now a narrativist system. It is no longer a simulationist system. And I imagine people are losing their fucking minds. I imagine every single hardcore Vampire Masquerade player is going to absolutely hate this. And the reason I know this is because I think this sounds cool. And so if I think it sounds cool, you know that people are going to hate it. Okay? Hate it. That's right. Mark Clore knows it's correct. So I'll give you a great example. It was sponsored. They were really cool. They reached out to us. And again, remember, it takes a big vote of currency, of confidence rather, to sponsor Night's Last Call, because I tell my people who sponsor us, I'm not going to review your game until I look at it live on stream. and I may shit on it, and I may not like it. So, you know, if you know my style and you think you can pass through the gauntlet, please, by all means, pay me money and I will talk about your game. And to their credit, right, we had, the folks from Tunnels and Troll say, we want you to look at our game. And I said, okay, this is a game from the 80s. How good could it be? And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, wow, they've kind of gutted the game and they made this really cool, interesting, updated version. It honors the legacy of Tunnels and Trolls while keeping some of your favorite IP intact, but we've completely changed the rules. And I thought, wow, this is great, because I don't give a shit about Tunnels and Trolls. But turns out the people who do love Tunnels and Trolls, all 35 of them, from the old days, were all absolutely hated it, because they were like, this is just a cash grab. And I go, okay, for starters, anybody making a fucking game about Tunnels and Trolls is not doing a cash grab. Let's just dispense with that nonsense. But they are inspired by the historical legacy of the game, and they're clearly just stealing and raiding the IP. Okay. And also, right, no one's coming, there's no Pinkertons coming down to your door to knock down your door. And, do you really want to update to your 35-year-old RPG game anyways? I get, maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, yes, new Tunnels and Trolls seems awesome. Old Tunnels and Trolls exist. No one's going to stop you from playing Vampire, New World of Darkness, Old World of Darkness. Shit. Come bust out what is apparently the revised edition of Vampire the Masquerade. And like we did when we were teenagers, make sure you just fucking max out on potency and celerity like the badass gangrel that you are, and go to town. Is that the shapeshifter people that live in the earth? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, feral vampires, animalistic tendencies, animism, potency, love it. Anyways. All right, with my 17 actions a turn for my maxed out celerity and my maxed out swords or whatever like that, I'm going to go off and go to school. Anyways. Vampire can be very power. Gangrel do not have potency or celerity. Okay, look, I give me credit for knowing a clan name and a discipline name. Okay. Oh, why would you? Look, if I'm going to be a vampire, fuck that. I am going to be beautiful, okay? I am going to be beautiful, all right? G Helmet says, that new TNT book looks so fin that I kicked it. Yeah, I thought it was a great game, and I thought it was a great game. In fact, there were a lot of mechanics in that game. Like, there are some games that people, Kilo Mike Bravo says, Toreador all the way. Oh, of course, very, how artistic and tragic of you to be a Toreador. What I was going to say is there have been some games that have really come across that have really kind of gotten inside of my brain. Wilder Feast was one of them. Heroic Deeds is another. And actually, the Tunnels and Trolls game, even though I haven't had time to go back and look at it, I think Tunnels and Trolls has some really cool tech in it from a game perspective. Anyways, there is now a unified procedure for physical and social conflict. Again, horribly simulationist. Derek loves unified procedures. Okay, I love unified procedures. Burning Wheel, Torchbearer, even to a certain extent, the One Ring. Unified procedures are fantastic when the game works the same to resolve conflict. We've added 2 new mechanics to support players when they fail, right? Fail forward. Failing sucks, right? What was the name of I had a video that did really well. It's called, what was it called? Like, while failure is not fun or something like that. Called literally Devil's Bargain. And choose your pain. Make a deal with the storyteller to secure success by paying a price negotiated by the storyteller, right? That's right. It is very much, let's just make up anything we want anytime. To be clear, Marcus, it is, when people say that, they're being dismissive. I think the truth of the matter is that that's the way a lot of people actually play these games. And what is to say, when people play Vampire and when people play D&D, they actually are playing a game that has pretty strictured rules, but they want to make it into a storytelling game. And so what they do is they cheat, they fudge, they lie, they make house rules, and they work around it. So they're doing it anyways. This game is at least being open about it. The problem is that when people are shown what they really are in the mirror, they become uncomfortable. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that's everyone. In fact, I fully believe that people who are really, truly, simulationists and actors, and again, yes, I do think simulationists are actors. And I know Beowulf agrees with me, and apparently so does Black Lodge. They, if they truly embrace this, kudos to you. What I don't like is people who claim to be all about hardcore simulationism, let the dice fall where they may, yada, yada, yada. But meanwhile, they are either playing in or they are running a game where they are quietly, secretly manipulating things behind the curtain. In that case, I think the biggest fuck you in the world. If you're playing your stuff straight up and you're letting the dice and the game mechanics function essentially as a physics engine for resolving conflict and uncertainty in your game world, and then the dice fall where they may and the story comes out of that in a very feral way, great. I think that's cool. Now, I've had a lot of experiences with games like that. We've all played D&D for many, many, many years, going back to 2nd edition and basic. And yeah, it can produce some of the best stories I've ever seen in my life. It can also produce really, really, really shitty outcomes that are boring and unfun. So, again, take the good with the bad. My situation nowadays is I'm not playing a role-playing game to prove anything, right? Black Lodge, I'm right there with you. I always roll my dice out in the open. In fact, when the last time I've been playing, D&D and Pathfinder and stuff like that, I even have my players track my monster's hit points for me because I have nothing to hide, and quite frankly, I don't even want to bother with it. Any case, I mean, these are quite literally indie darlings, right? This is success. This is success at a cost. Success with a consequence. This is literally Devil's Bargain is literally the name of the mechanic from Blades in the Dark. We're not going to go into the game today. It apparently, number one, it's available on Demiplane. Fuck Demiplane. But we will, because we'll get Jess on and we'll go into this. But I have to imagine that the community absolutely 100% hates this to the core. And I can see why. This is a dramatic change. It is a narrativist forward mechanic. That is true, Beowulf. To be clear, though, Beowulf, you say that it's done before the roll, this is done after the roll, but you have resistance, right? Resistance in Blades in the Dark is basically a Devil's Bargain after the roll. It's just the cost is always stress. And remember, a resistance roll is always successful. It's only a question of how much stress it's going to cost you. It's always successful. If you choose to resist, you resist. Full stop. Now, the nature of how much you resist is up to the GM and the tone of your game, but your resist is always successful. So, but yes, you make a good point. It's not exactly the same thing. Yeah, I love resistance too. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite mechanics. I love the Blades in the Dark is fantastic. Self-confessed cynic says, I will look back at this period of rising narrativism in hatred and disgust. Well, don't worry, because, the Broken Empires exists. It's out there. It's coming soon. And, fulfillment is expected in Q1 2027. I had a very long series of conversations with Trevor Duvall. He and we fuck with each other immensely. We are really much on the same wavelength on many things. And he understands and he agrees that, this style of play isn't maybe the most popular anymore. Because there's a lot of people who like to think they are playing a Broken Empires, that they are playing a sim, quote unquote, sim heavy game. But the truth of the matter is they're not. Okay, they're playing a sim heavy game, but their GM is ignoring all the rules that they don't like. They're playing a sim heavy game and they're using the dice rolls, say, when they're in combat, but they're ignoring the dice rolls when it's a role playing scene, right? We'll just let the players talk it out. Well, okay. Why do we use dice to determine who gets hit with a sword, but we don't use dice to determine who gets persuaded? Trevor loved my explanation of how I said, well, what if I'm really good at HEMA And what if I make a really good description of how my sword thrust would absolutely kill that person? Should you just give me success? Should you just let me kill the person instantaneously? No. Well, then why would you let me do that with an argument? So there's this weird tension that exists in simulationist games where a lot of simulationists are simulationists at their leisure. There's plenty of instances where they make exceptions in the name of quote unquote role playing. But what is role playing? Blah, 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 blah. And in fact, Trevor also agrees with me because Trevor is an actor by trade and by profession. And he agrees with me that truly being an actor means that you are given a script for which you have no control over. Okay. And your job is to bring that script to life. Well, the script writer, okay, is the dice. The script writer is the mechanics and the dice of the game, creating an outcome. And then your job as a player at the table is to take that outcome and make it work and make it make sense. It's not about what you think would be happening. It's about what, you go to. And also Megasaura, another thing which I've said many times on my stream, and Trevor brought it up during our conversation, which is you are still playing a game. That game is who is the most persuasive in real life. People say they don't like puzzles. I've heard this before. People say they don't like puzzles because, the character doesn't solve the puzzle. The player has to solve the puzzle. Okay, well, when you do a role-playing scene where you're trying to convince the DM, how is that not a puzzle? It's a test of the player. It's how well do you know the GM? What are they particularly fond of? What do they like? What kind of arguments work on them? What can you say to convince the GM that they should agree with you? You're still playing a game. It's just no longer a role-playing game. What it's actually more like is it's more like my least favorite game of all time, which is Werewolf or Mafia, okay? Where the game, there is no real game except for lying, deceiving, and getting people to agree with you based on really nothing because it's all made up, It's all made up. We're just making it up. No one knows anything. So, and I hate that game. And I don't want to play that game at my D&D table either. So, I'm like, the GM's like, well, you need to convince me. And I go, no, I just want to roll a dice, man. So that's fine. Yeah, Boyko, I agree. The game then becomes playing the GM. And that some people like playing that game. Some people go to Gen Con, go to any convention. Past 10 p.m., you will see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people playing, a werewolf. So, you're a werewolf. You're definitely a werewolf. You wouldn't have voted for him if you knew. You have to know. You had to know. And you were trying to get us to lynch. You were trying to get us to lynch our seer last night. You are definitely a werewolf. Now, Zip Zap Rabbit claims that I don't understand simulationist gamers like at all. That may be the case, Zip Zap Rap. But my guess is, actually, I do. Now, Black Lodge, I think, brings up what I think is actually more appropriate, which is the idea that I'm a big fan of, look, as a player, what I think role-playing is, by the way, is the idea of controlling your character through the game or the story. Playing the character through the game of the story. What that means is that if I roll the dice and if I roll low on my diplomacy check, then I should make a bad argument. If I roll high, I should make a good argument. If I roll low, I should, to do it, you should do it. And if you did it, then you should do it. Right now, there's some people who say, "Oh, you should roll first and then role play," or whatever. You should role play and then roll whatever. What is role playing? Whatever the whole thing. But the most important part about it is, I think that the fun part for me of a role playing game is that intersection between fiction and mechanics. And I think that is what, what I think is really, really neat. Which I think is really, really cool. And again, right, I will quote Ray Winninger, who wrote a series of articles in Dragon Magazine back in the 90s. And he said he created the rules of Dungeon Craft. And one of the things he said, the best adventures, and of course he was writing about, D&D and D&D adventures, but you could, instead of adventures, say the best game, the best role-playing games, challenge the player and they challenge the player character. And quite frankly, there's a lot of gaming that's occurring. And if you notice from my system, I don't like games that only challenge the character or only challenge the player. There's a lot of people who play really hyper, role-playing heavy games. We didn't roll any dice. Or people who play OSR games and they're like, yeah, we just, combat is war. We just had a great plan and the GM just said it worked. That's great. That is all challenging the player. There's also people who play, draw steel, PF2, pick your poison, right? Where you're literally just running your character build right through a series of encounters and you're just spamming dice rolls and, you just point at your character and you push the button. Okay, that's just challenging the character. For me, the very best role-playing games and the very best role-playing game systems and the very best role-playing game sessions challenge both. And ideally, they challenge both simultaneously. A lot of people will play it where it's discrete. They will challenge the character during combat. They will challenge the player during not combat. In fact, I think that's how a lot of people play role-playing games these days. And that I think is well, again, I don't know why it's so popular, but I think that is not necessarily my favorite thing to do, where you have basically two discrete systems of styles of play. But for a lot of people, the game is very much about challenging the player. What does the player say? What does the player do? Combat is war. Come over, whatever. And then when you get into combat, it's all just character. But Super Dice, yes, depending on the game, if the game has enough complexity to it, you are challenging the player through a tactical decision. The reason Super Dice that can become kind of problematic is because a lot of these games have such tight guardrails over what you are able to accomplish tactically that the tactical decision, doesn't matter as much, if that makes any sense. So somebody said, Osley, isn't playing the GM a big part of PBTA? Absolutely not, Osley. In fact, one of the reasons that some people both play PBTA or run PBTA incorrectly, and but then for the people who do understand the rules, don't like it, is because in Powered by the Apocalypse, actually, the GM doesn't get to say whether or not a rule applies or not. If you trigger a rule, if you trigger a move, that move must happen. The GM doesn't get to say. So there's a lot of people who get that wrong, and the GM just calls for rolls when they feel like it. That's not right. The GM doesn't call for rolls ever in PBTA. The fiction and what you are doing in it and what that game cares about and what moves are in play in that game, that is the only thing that, quote unquote, calls for a rule. Secondly, the GM doesn't get to decide whether or not that rule triggers. If you do it, then you did it, and the move must occur. Yes, you do have to know the rules of the game in order to play the game. It is true. Yeah. Fuck, I hate PBTA. And I love it so much. Osley, I would say officially maybe, but Osley, I would say that 95% of people who run and play those games definitely don't run it that way, right? The GM will say, well, no, we're not going to call for a check that time. Or they'll make an exception, or the GM is the one deciding whether or not, blah, blah, blah. Now, Black Lodge, here's the thing. I love the rules of PBTA. I love what it does for a gaming table, but the language that is used in PBTA is absolutely horrific. I don't necessarily know. I don't know that you are specifically speaking about how it affects the game, but you know, it was created by Vincent Baker and all those people from the Forge, and I was one of those people who love to go to those websites. But even I think the terminology moves and ongoing and forward, and it's not great. And yeah, Shinobi, that's a great example. D&D comes in, Pathfinder comes in with rule 0 right off the bat and says, change what you want, make rulings as you see fit. PBTA does not have that. That PBTA does not have that. Now, that's not to say that the GM isn't important, as Boyko is pointing out. But I would also argue, too, that most PBTA games, in fact, I would say all PBTA games also clearly state as a GM, these are your agendas, these are your principles. You know, you have to do this. Yes, I assume that you weren't into narrative mechanics in general, but yes, here's the thing. I do enjoy narrative mechanics, but I think we can both agree on the terminology. It's not my favorite. Dadon, what games mix the testing of players and characters for you? Well, I mean, I can think of several off of the cuff, but one of the ones that really always jumps out to me is Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition. This one. It does a really excellent job of that. The decisions that you make as a player over what is your approach really influence the outcome of a scene and of a game, but it's also a test of your character, and you're still going to roll dice and you're still going to make choices. And then even when you're making your choices from your dice roll system, I would imagine Genesis is I mean, I only play Genesis via Warhammer Fantasy 3rd edition. But the choices that you're making, even in the roll and keep, that's a mechanics driven thing. That's a player character driven thing. But the choices that you're making as a player over which dice to keep, do you take strife? Do you not take strife? Sure, that has a mechanical consequence, but it also very much has a fictional consequence as well. So I think, now granted, you know, well, that's just the thing, Shinobi. The statistics aren't statistics, and that's why people have a hard time with them, because they're not like strength. It's not like con. It's not like int. In Legend of the Five Rings, you have 5 rings that represent a approach or a methodology for how you are accomplishing something, rather than, you know, are you good at it, right? So it's it's not necessarily the most. It's not really simulationist. It's not, yeah. I mean, it's a little. The game is a little underbaked. I will fully agree with that. Anyways, so we will do a vampire. Well, maybe we'll bust out this alpha rule set. I don't know. I don't know if Jess has any thoughts about it, because I don't think Jess really plays. She plays Changeling, I think, but you know, her only vampire experience is playing the Mind's Eye Theater LARP rules from the 90s. But I will say, I'm sure that the vampire people hate this, and I get it. I get it. You know, here's the crazy thing: narrativist mechanics exist so that people like me, who like playing games, can create good stories through the playing of the game. Whereas, but that is completely anathema to people who are playing role-playing games so that they can live in a fictional world. And the truth of the matter is, most people, I'm assuming, who play Vampire the Masquerade are doing so because, you know, they want to be a vampire, and they think the idea of being a vampire is really cool. And they don't want rules to help them tell a cool story, because they're not interested in the game for the rules. The rules exist so that they can determine outcomes. To a certain extent, the people who play vampire aren't necessarily interested in, I'm being very generic here and very broad and stereotyping, but they're not interested in playing a game, right? They are interested in living the lives of these vampires and seeing what stories emerge from that simulation of being a vampire. And so not only are these rules in direct opposition to that. But they also obviously leave behind, everything else that they have come to, things. And yes, Black Lodge is correct. Simulation produces great stories, but they aren't narratives in the sense of literature. And I completely agree. Now, to be clear, simulation doesn't always produce great stories. But the problem with simulation is, I can say this very, very, very confidently. Some of my favorite, best gaming moments of all time have come from sim-heavy games. D&D 3rd Edition, very sim-heavy game. No narrativist mechanics at all. No meta currency whatsoever. And 10 out of 10. Some of the best moments I've ever experienced in a gaming situation. Because they were real. I know it's a bullshit concept, but it was a challenge-based game where the mechanics were set up not to favor the PCs, look, we have this system, that's a CR 22, you're level 15, mechanically you should not win, you made some interesting choices, and it wasn't like, oh, you made a good choice, and I'm just going to decide that you win. No, we're still fucking playing by the rules, and that made it really cool, right? And the players won anyways. Now, the problem is people really like that. That's a great feeling. It's amazing. And a lot of GMs fuck up because something like that will happen to them early in their GM career. And then they start chasing that high and they realize that truly was. The reason that was special, the reason why it felt special is because it really actually was a 1 in a million or a 1 in 10,000 chance thing that happened. But their players get addicted to that and they get addicted to it. And at that point, you have 3 options. 1, you can start playing narrativist games, which openly, through the mechanics, are designed to create that experience more repeatedly. 2, you can say, okay, look, that was awesome, but part of what made that awesome is the fact that for every 10 you get, for every 10 out of 10 you get, you have a 1 out of 10. You have a 0 out of 10. Every time the heroes make that, the heroes make that dramatic last stand where they're hopelessly outnumbered, 1 time out of 12, they win, and it's the most amazing thing that you ever did. But 11 times out of 12, they lose, and it's a TPK. And maybe your group breaks up, or maybe the campaign falls apart, because TPKs can and do that, or at least the campaign can oftentimes, end. And then there's the third. There's the third option. And the third option, which has become very popular in the 5e sphere, even to the point where now notable, content creators and people on Reddit and whatever will give you advice, which is to cheat, to make the players think that was a hopeless victory. But in reality, you were cheating and they were going to win every time. And that, I think we can all agree, at least here in this channel, in this space, is not good. But the question is, what is the point of the game? What is the point of the game session? Is to create an incredible, amazing experience for your players, in which case, maybe you should be lying and fudging. I don't know. It's a tough thing. But of course, I'm one of those people who thinks that I don't think the purpose of a role-playing game should be to create fun. I say that all the time. In fact, I think when you're saying aren't role-playing games about creating fun? No, I don't think that they are, nor do I think that they should be. In fact, I think fun is a terrible game objective, because what is fun? That's so subjective. Yeah, Ken, it's gaslighting the players. And an entire culture of GMs have been raised to gaslight the players. The difference is narrativist games do the same thing. They just do it out in the open. That's all. And again, people just get, people can get uncomfortable for it because they want it to be real. Okay, fine, motherfucker. We'll make it real. But then you better strap in, because it's not going to go well for you. Or actually, there's a fourth option. The fourth option is Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but let's just say the math is tight. The math is tight. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you don't have to cheat as a GM. And there's no narrativist bullshit. That game is so painfully, excruciatingly designed, though, that yes, exactly, Dr. Dehart. The math is tight. Math is tight. Is that if you just follow the rules of the game, you are going to get your outcomes without having to cheat, So our dumpster fire should be it shouldn't be what is a game. It should be what is fun. That's correct. But yeah. Boothby says, I'm really glad to have gotten to a point where I have a mix of narrative to pixel bitchy games in my roster. Yeah. And I look, there's a reason there's a lot of games on my shelf. You know, I love playing pixel bitchy games. Not so much recently, but you know, there's still that itch deep down inside of me. For the most part, a lot of my pixel bitchy games, you know, have sort of, I've sort of have, like, for example, I've started playing EverQuest recently again, EverQuest Legends. And that sort of fulfills my itch to like make a build and gain sick XP and loot and just grind monsters, right? Sometimes when I really want to feel like, war games have always scratched an itch. It's like people are like, I love the tactical. I don't need the tactical. I mean, compared to a game like Warhammer or War Machine or Mordheim or whatever, you know, D&D feels like a kid's game. So, I'm clearing Lower Gook now. Sick. I just got to Lower Gook. I was gonna stream, so maybe I'll stream after this stream and play some EQ. Yes, Carlos. Yes, it's super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Do we?
Whoops. Whoopsie.
I knew I had that on there. Whoops. Whoopsie. Whoops. So I'm delighted to see what happens with this vampire thing, because this is a version of vampire that I might actually play. Because it sounds awesome. And again, there's a lot of really cool, crazy, fun mechanics that I love. Things like the shadow track and in the One Ring, and of course the balance track in Avatar Legends. Well, it sounds like they're bringing that back. With the Beast nature track and everything like that. I will say, I don't know. Oh, big time. This has huge Daggerheart vibes. This is them leaving the vampire people behind. Yeah. And that is the problem, Shinobi. You should not make a Vampire the Masquerade Derek edition. I am not your audience. And that apparently they're going to make it one. I can't imagine this ends well. Sorry, Paradox. I just, but also these are terrible names. Quickening, Drama, and Zipperfist. I haven't opened up the rules yet, but again, the whole honor the legacy thing. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to keep the 9 attributes, right? The 3x3x3 or what? 3x3 kind of shtick of vampire. I'm sure they're going to keep all the disciplines. I'm sure they're going to keep the clans, right? They're going to keep the outer wrapper, right? Very similar. All right. We're going to do a, do I have, do we have, technically there's like a bunch of clans here, but I only know the ones I want. To be honest with you, 99% of what I know about Vampire the Masquerade, I'm not even lying. It came from Jihad, which was the name of the TCG game that came out in the 90s. I played a lot of Jihad. A lot of what I know, like Diablerie and like all of the stuff I know about Vampire mostly is from Jihad, which is the card game. So most of what I know is not actually from that, the card game. All right, so it's going to be, what Vampire clan are you playing in VTM 6? I'm sorry, V6 is what they call it. All right, so we're going to put in Bruja. We're going to put in Gangrel. I'm skipping some of the ones that I don't actually know. We're going to put in the Malkavians. We're going to put in the Nosferatu. Let's see. I don't know them. I don't know. No. Toreador. The artist people. Tremere. Ventru. Is that it? I feel like I'm forgetting one. I'm skipping Caitiff. I'm fixing Shmichi. Just because I don't remember these ones from like the game. All right. Reset poll. Poll is up. Remember, you just put a number in chat. That's how you vote. All right. Which vampire clan are you playing in Vampire 6? Bruja, Gangrel, Malkavians, Nosferatu, Toreador, Tremere, or Ventru. I put Ventur, but yeah, you get the idea. It's Ventru. The big six, yeah, or the big seven, yeah, Boyko. These are the ones I know. These are the ones from the card game, so that's where I saw somebody say Rage CCG was fun. Rage was also really cool. That was a great card game. Those cards, I remember them being super thick. There were some really good TCG games. Again, 99% of what I know from Werewolf, I know from I know from the TCG or the CCG. Yeah. They have 14 in the alpha. Okay, well, I don't know about the Sabat, and I don't know about the other people. I only know the ones that I know from like back in the day. Black Lodge says this is going to be the last edition of Vampire. I mean, I could see that. So, the WoW TCG is a great example of how modern, like, Magic's great, and I love Magic. But there are problems with Magic. In fact, one of the problems with Magic is very similar to simulationist games, which is to say that in Magic the Gathering, a lot of people say it's the best game ever. And part of the reason for that is because deck composition and creation of your game is really important. But unfortunately, because it's random and because you have all these factors, you get games of Magic the Gathering that are non-games. And specifically, I'm talking about games where you mana flood or mana screw. You draw too many lands or too few. You either don't get to cast any spells or you don't get to play any spells. And as a result, there's some percentage of Magic games that are actually undeniably terrible. They are bad experiences, right? They are 0 out of 10, 1 out of 10. It was an actively unfun experience. And we accept these because we love the effects of having a good game. But by and large, most people don't work like that, okay? And so what like the WoW TCG did, in fact, also Wizards of the Coast about in the early 2000s released a very, I think, beautifully, wonderfully designed game that went absolutely nowhere called Hecatomb, partially because they were 5-sided cards. They were pentagrams. Turns out not only were the game wasn't that popular, but it turns out it was really difficult to store a pentagon card. Anyways, but they used what would later be taken by the WoW TCG, which was the idea that there was no land cards. All cards could be played once per turn. You could play one card into your mana zone. And this solved the mana flood and the mana screw issue completely. But what that did is it eliminated the ones and the 1 out of 10, the 2 out of 10, the 0 out of 10 game. But people would also argue that it kind of removed the 10 out of 10 and the 9 out of 10 game. And so the idea is when you're sitting down to play a game, would you rather play a game that is consistently a 5, 6, 7, or 8 out of 10? By the way, that's weighted towards better. It's not just average. It's weighted towards being good. It's weighted towards 7 out of 10, right? So would you rather play a game where the floor was a 5 out of 10 experience, but the ceiling was capped at 8 out of 10? Or would you rather play a game where you could legitimately have an incredible, amazing 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 experience, but you were going to inevitably, some of the time, have an absolutely completely shitty 0 out of 10, 1 out of 10 experience? Because that 0 out of 10 and that 10 out of 10 is literally Magic the Gathering. So you're correct, Boyko. TCGs have mostly solved the mana issue. Hearthstone solved the mana issue. Hecatomb solved the issue back in 2002. The Versus system, I saw somebody say the Versus system, they solved that issue. WoW TCG solved that issue. The Epic card game solved that issue. Every game solved this issue because it's a huge issue. And yet, people will say that the game is, it's too solved. It's too on rails. Because Osili, I think, is right. The 10 out of 10 game is what will stay with you. The problem, Osili, is that people don't stop playing games because of a lack of 10 out of 10s. People stop playing games because they have 1 or 2 0 out of 10s, right? I known people who will play a game and say that they love that game, and they could have the most incredible experience ever. But the moment they have that first 0 out of 10 experience, they swear off the game and they go, look, there's a million games in my Steam library. There's a million games on my board game shelf. There's a million role-playing games on Derek's shelf. I'll play the next one. So that's the trouble, right? That's the trouble. Now, Beowulf says that's why Sim is better. You get 0s and 10s, and there's a certain, hardcore experience to that. For example, going back to what we were talking about, the StarCraft miniatures game, there is an experience in Warhammer 40. Well, it's in true Warhammer Fantasy, but it's true Warhammer 40,000, very popular game, Space Marines, right? It's called getting tabled. And what it means is that, because in that game, one of you roll, your opponent goes first. They get to activate every single one of their units. Okay. You made your army. You went to play the game. Maybe it's a tournament. Maybe it's just a friendly tournament. No money, but you're going down to your local game shop. You brought all your miniatures. You painted them. You painstakingly assembled your army. You get there. You set up the terrain. You find your table. You start deploying your troops. It takes a while, right? They deploy a unit. You deploy a unit. You deploy a unit. Maybe you made a little bit of a mistake. Maybe your opponent got hot fire lucky. But on their first turn, they could wipe out every single one of your units. And if you have no units on the board, it's called getting tabled, and you lose the game immediately. Now, you might have had some units in reserve that are, but according to the rules of the game, at least when I played Warhammer, if you have no units on the game board, you lose the game immediately. And that's it. You just lost. Is that what you want to do with your Saturday? I think being able to accept 0s out of 10 for 10 out of 10 was very appealing when I was 20, when I was 25, when I was 30. God, Shinobi, perfect. As the older I get, the less time I have for 0s. That's, now granted, 40K, I didn't really play 40K. I played a little bit in like 5th edition or 6th edition or something like that. But like, I was a Warhammer Fantasy player. Man, there were some Warhammer Fantasy games. Some of the Mordheim games that we used to play, they were awesome. They were amazing. They were incredible, and there's no finger on the button. There's no finger on the scale. There's no GM in those games. They're trying to win. You're trying to win. And through that interaction, through that conflict, this incredible, amazing narrative gets created that you can look back at later. Later, you look back and say, wow, what an epic battle between dwarves and chaos. But there's also the times when, everybody gets killed, in the first turn, and it's a slaughter. It's tough. Witness says, I still have my Blood Angels librarians with magnetic options, jump jets, and Space Wolf medics with optional plasma bolter magnetic options. Going full magnet, that's respect. Witness, the only thing I ever magnetized, Witness, was some of my Warjacks from War Machine, because it was, they were bigger. They were like dreadnought sized, and there was a lot of customizable options. I don't think I would have ever magnetized anything that small. I was not that handy with a pin vise, and I didn't have a Dremel at that time. But, anyways, reports are in. Indiana Convention Center is expanding by 143,500 square feet, and new hotels in the downtown area will be open in 2027. The number of vendors increased in 2026 to nearly 800, and I'm sure next year it'll probably be 1,200. Yeah. BattleTech is cool. That's also a game that I probably would rather play with like a computer crunching the math for me, but yeah. Well, wait. How is the convention center expanding by 143,000 feet? That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even make sense. Because that is like the equivalent. No, they already use upstairs. Unless you mean like Oh, we gotta. Number of vendors up 45%, and boy, did they do. ICC expanding for Gen Con 60. Over 74,000 people attended in Gen Con, which is 2,000 more than the prior year. I mean, my guess is what they mean, Stephen, is that they mean that they're going to expand into this area. Because if you do the math on this, well, maybe they're not doing the whole area. Maybe they're only going to expand the dealer hall into like C, D, and E or something like that. Plus the swing space. Like, I wonder if we type that in. What do we get here? So we got 43,200 plus 46,800 plus 40,400 plus the swing space. Yeah, so that's very close to 143,000. So I wonder if they're going to actually just expand into C, D, E for the dealer hall. Yeah. To be clear, by the way, for people asking this, so like these rooms here on the side, these are already occupied. They're including the hotels. Okay. If they're including the hotels, then that makes sense because we did talk about that. And for people saying, why don't they do the second floor? Well, the second floor is already, I mean, the second floor is pretty small because the convention center goes all the way to the ceiling. So these are already occupied. And this is the only thing that's on the second floor of Gen Con. It's actually pretty small. And then the Sagamore Ballroom, this big area here at 33,000 feet, this is all Pathfinder 2 and Starfinder 2. Sick witness protection. That was my first Gen Con. My first Gen Con was the last Gen Con in Milwaukee. So that's pretty cool. Well, they need to do it, Kojo. I mean, the whole downtown area has been under construction for a long time. So anyways, that's right. Witness, D&D 3rd edition came out in 2000. So if it was the release of D&D 3rd edition, that was the year 2000. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what's going on. What's going on with everything. And of course, there was other things there that I quite frankly don't have any insight on from Gen Con. Like Dungeon Crawler Carl was there and was huge, but they don't even have a game yet. So it's like, what the fuck? Also, I could give a shit about Dungeon Crawler Carl. Sorry, everybody. I just don't care. 3.5 was 2003. Which was the first year that Gen Con was in Indy. Mark, you know what? Mark, I agree with you on that one, buddy. Well, Kojo, if you come to Origins, that's a good opportunity to check out NightCon. We ran NightCon this year. It was a huge success, and I mean, depending on who signs up for it, I may need to expand next year. So we'll see what's going on. But we had our own con within a con, so it was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of problems with Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm not a big fan of the Ikisai thing and the lit RPG and all that other stuff. But also, it's just its style is flippant. It's whatever. I mean, it's fine, but it's not for me, and that's okay. So right, this was NightCon 0. So NightCon 1 next year will be at Origins 2027. Apparently, there's going to be London Con at NightCon, at thing. Now, Roll for Combat saying the most buzzworthy games. I just hate buzz. I just buzz. Who gives a shit about buzz? Dungeon Crawler Carl, Game Lines by Renegade Game Studios. The people who had nothing. Riftbound TCG. Now, this is true. We did see endless, copious lines for people standing in line to get Riftbound stuff. So I don't know if there was like some big release or whatever. I don't give a shit about Cyber. Like, it's all just TCGs. It's probably just people trying to collect so that they can scalp and sell stuff. Origins 2027 is June 9th through the 13th. So Wednesday, the 9th of June through the 13th. So I actually need to talk to my people at Gamma here shortly and start trying to figure out what we're going to do for a room. So I'm expecting that we might get, we had about 45, almost 50 people this year And I thought it was pretty good. But if we get 20 more people, we probably need more space. And I don't know. It becomes potentially problematic for paying for it, but we'll figure it out. Fantastic, my friend. Fantastic. Yeah. So we had a lot of advantages this year. Not to praise anybody, excessively, but we did have some really generous people this year who helped support the NightCon from happening. For it's not expensive, but for me it's expensive, especially since I'm not working. So if I want to get another room or double my space, it's going to become even more expensive. And but again, I think now that we've proven that it was really good and people really enjoyed it, I think maybe I wouldn't feel as bad, having it be a little bit more expensive. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Secondary market is toxic as fuck, Steam driven. And I say this as someone who, I started this channel with funds made from selling my, Black Lotus and, my unlimited set of Magic the Gathering. So, because I didn't want to go into debt. And technically I started this channel by starting my photography business, which failed. But I didn't want to go into debt, so I financed that by selling off Magic cards. So, and I say that, and I still think the secondary market now is terrible. Because at the end of the day, yes, I collected cards. Yes, they're worth a lot of money. But I played the game. I played the shit out of the game. So, I was fine with that. Crossfire by Hasbro. Azul Kids, of course. Azul is huge. Oh, you don't know that story? Or are you saying? Are you saying that story of how that happened is crazy? You know the story is just crazy. It is a crazy story. I sold to an anonymous. I sold to an anonymous seller, an anonymous buyer who refused to identify themselves. I had to meet their representative. They flew me out to San Francisco because they would only do the transaction in person, and it was either cash or Bitcoin. Was it shady? I don't know, but look, we were desperate. It was quite the trip. Look, I got a free trip to San Francisco out of it. I sold the cards. Yeah. Am I doing the Hobbit pre-release this weekend? I am sorely tempted. It depends on what I have some time, but I may. Saturday I'm busy. Again, my buddy Larry is moving, and then Sunday I'm doing the One Ring, and then I'm also doing. I was talking to Bob because we had this thing. We're going to try to get this done. So I do have a busy weekend. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit it in. So we'll see. Maybe but see, Friday they do them too late. And so I don't think I'm going to be able to do it Friday either. So yeah, probably not. Probably not, but that's okay. I wish I could play on my phone or an arena on my computer. I did it during pandemic, but I just didn't, I just don't like playing digital. I like playing with paper. It's just like RPGs. I don't like digital. I like fiddly stuff. I like dice, and I like all the stuff that Beowulf hates. I like little tokens and chits and stuff like that, So I'm a big fan of that. But let's see. What else? I love physical cards, Lollipop. I love board games. As much as I love board games because I think they're actually legitimately, good games, I love board games just because I love things. I love bits. But yeah, so what I could say from Gen Con is, Free League is, I think, trying to step it up and become a bigger player. And they're doing that with this digital offering. Unfortunately, it's not for me, but some people really love digital. Vampire is finally becoming a story game, like a legitimate story game. They would always call it the storyteller system. And I was kind of like, is it though? It doesn't have any narrativist mechanics. Well, now it does, and people are going to hate it. So I think that is absolutely massive. For sure. OSR felt a little bit more subdued this year at Gen Con, I think. These are just completely, my vibes. I wasn't going to print, if I do a Fabula Ultima game, I wasn't going to print it. Now I am, or at least I'm really looking to do it. I really want to do it in B5, also, again, because of Gen Con. And I would love to maybe even do, we talk about cards, I would love to do a stretch goal where we could do our monster book and also do, adversary cards, like on, tarot sized cards. And that way, GMs could just pull cards out of a deck. I think that's really awesome. The Ennies were great. I only went to the first part to listen to, Professor Dungeon Masters. He hosted the Ennies. Apparently he did a great job. I mean, what I saw was great. Of course he did. He's a teacher. I don't know why he was nervous about it. And I was like, you know what? Like, no, like he did great. He's a natural. He's just natural. Again, he's a teacher. But I watched his opening marks, and I didn't stick around for everything. But Daggerheart won, Legends in the Mist won, Dolmenwood won. All games that we've covered, all games that we really liked. So sometimes it feels good to be like, hey, Derek, look, you're not just covering things that nobody's ever going to hear about. Now 5 people are going to hear about it. Now I have to convert my project size to B5. Yet another thing. So for everybody who's like, what is B5? So, B5, now there's Japanese B5 and then there's like, there's American or ISO B5, but that's A5. A5 is the traditional digest size, right? This is the Shadow Dark, Fabula, Ultima. A4 is fairly close to letter. It's not 100% letter. By the way, for those of you who don't know, so A5 and A4 have a constant static ratio, which means if you take A4, okay, you turn it landscape, okay, and fold it in half, it is now A5. Okay, so A4 is half. B5 is designed to be the literal geometric mean between A5 and A4. And so it's quite literally between A5, which is our digest size books, and A4, which again isn't letter sized, but it's fairly close to letter size while still being more elegant. And I just think that that's amazing and that's awesome. I love the extra real estate you get, especially for a bestiary where I want to be able to put a lot of stuff on one page without making the text really, really small. And it's not, look, I love the Wild Sea books. They're great, but they are a little weird on the shelf, if your shelf fits A5 and letter or A4, it's going to fit B5. So anyways, I think it's really cool. Yeah. What did I do? Yeah. And then of course, obviously, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming from D&D. I mean, I'm going to say this at the risk of sounding, whatever. I think I'm kind of excited about Dark Sun. I think this could be cool for them, And I think a lot of people that have been talking about Dark Sun don't know anything about Dark Sun, which is fine. That's fine. That's fine. It was kind of it came out in like 93. It was never the most popular of, a lot of those campaign settings weren't popular. It was never the most popular one for sure. It was weird, right? No, I mean, especially back then, like no gods, no paladins. The clerics worshipped strange elemental powers. Casting magic killed the world or took forever. It was a weird world and it wasn't for everybody, even back then. And then it went away completely during the 3rd edition era. And then it came back. It was there were not that many supported systems in 4th edition D&D from the older editions. As far as I know, the only 2 were Eberron and Dark Sun. So believe it or not, Dark Sun is one of the only official, outside of Points of Light, settings that got a treatment in 4th edition D&D. But not a lot of people played 4th edition. And certainly not a lot of people were playing 4th edition by the time we got to that point. And they weren't buying Dark Sun. But Smith and I both think it's an excellent book. In fact, he just even said, he's like, yeah, that's really cool. He's like, I remember we went into 4th edition thinking we were going to hate. Was there a third official? There was an official 3rd edition Dark Sun? Oh, I completely skipped the Spell Plague. I'm sorry, Cole. I'm so used to thinking now the Forgotten Realms as being the standard default, but you are correct. There was the absolutely terrible Forgotten Realms books. The Spell Plague is a plight on the world. it's so funny because these books are terrible, and it was a licensed. Okay, but it wasn't official, but it was licensed, so I'll give it credit. But I'm talking about like official. Anyways, these were terrible. I will say though, the Sword Mage was a really cool class. So Sword Mage is great. Dark Sun is the Galarian's mana wastes, but the whole world. Yes. Remember, Galarian is the ultimate kitchen sink setting. It was so stupid. Like they had to have an excuse for why there was suddenly Dragonborn in the Forgotten Realms, and they wanted to get rid of all their existing IP. It was terrible. It was like one of the worst decisions they've ever made. It was absolutely terrible. Anyways, my point is, Dark Sun was never this big, huge, popular thing. And by the time it got released or announced 5 days ago, 6 days ago, a lot of people weren't knowing anything about it. And so suddenly all these people were coming out of the woodwork and they're talking about it, which is great, but they don't know what they're talking about. And they're saying stuff that is just stupid and wrong. And that's the only thing I don't like. It's fine. You know, being ignorant is not a crime. Spreading your ignorance should be. So yes, Galarian is very much, I mean, one of my favorite maps, let me say one second. One of my favorite meme maps, is this one it? Yeah, here it is. There we go. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen this before, but that, you know, that plays with, that plays open image and new tab. Okay, you're going to be stupid. We've all seen this one before, but it's like, you know, Antifa, Devil Fascist Empire, America, fuck yeah, Mega New York, literally Egypt, Elixir of Youth exporters, we hate God, it's fucking wet, you know, Scary Jungle, I bless the rains down in Africa, Wizard Squared, Steampunk, you know, it's literally the USSR, money, Scientology state, zombie apocalypse, USSR, fuck the USSR. Ruins of crumbled empire, but it got better. Fantasy Transylvania, Conan versus space robots, Demon Wastelands, fuck demons, cavemen, Russian Narnia. And it's so accurate. I love this inner sea map. It's so good. Camelot, but shitty. I love this one. It's so good. Arabian Nights. It's crazy. Yes. Now, Relative Dimensions, Joe, I'm not holding out for it. But yes, Relative Dimension Joe. That would be amazing. They should make preserving feel shitty and suck. And they should make defiling easy, tempting, and powerful. Full stop. But one of the things, Ken, that this is, and I bitched about this on Roll for Combat. I don't want to rehash that bitch. Is people are like, oh, Dark Sun is a gritty, horrible survivalist world. You know, 5th edition characters are really powerful. And it's a bad fit for it. I'm like, okay, well, in AD&D 2nd edition, Dark Sun characters used a better attribute generation system than the standard default AD&D 2nd edition. They started at 3rd level. Not they all, but a lot of your characters started with random psychic powers called wild talents. Your characters were actually stronger. And then they made Dark Sun for 4th edition. You know, the WoW game where every character was badass and awesome. Yeah. Turns out in all previous instances of the Dark Sun game, 4th edition and 2nd edition, I don't know the 3rd edition official license, but not made officially. Your character was always stronger than everybody else. You were not just some nobody, you know. You were a hero of the, gladiatorial arena. You know, you were one of the few elemental clerics who the dragon or the Sorcerer Kings had not, destroyed or killed, you were a special person to fight in this really tough, terrible world. So yeah, it is a little bit. So people are saying this because they know what they've heard and they know what they think. They know, or they have their opinion based off of like what they read somewhere once. They don't know anything about Dark Sun. Dark Sun lore is really great. Now, there's like the double deep lore where it gets really weird when you like factor in like the later expansions and some of the novels and some of the secrets and like Red Athos and Blue Athos, and it gets really like weird. But ignore that. Keep with the core premise of the game, and I think it's totally fine. And there's like it's a weird word. It feels different. I think too many people want to play D&D, and they just want to play D&D exactly the same, just with a different veneer. I talk about this all the time when I talk about people with ancestries and why I don't like races and ancestries, because people don't actually play an elf. Okay, they play a human wearing an elf suit. Okay, they play a human wearing a dwarf suit. They play, you know what I mean? Like they don't. It's skin deep. It's surface level. I want Dark Sun to not be like D&D. 4th edition D&D, I love it, but they fucked this up. 4th edition D&D was like, Dark Sun doesn't have paladins, but you could be a paladin. You're special, right? And I don't like that. No, fuck that. The gods are dead, or they're gone, or they're inaccessible. Take your pick. And you don't get to be a paladin. Full stop. If you're a cleric, you're more of an elementalist than a cleric. So, embrace the fact that your weapons are shitty and they break because they're made of bone and obsidian. That I want a different experience, which I think is really cool. So, by the way, Donnie, it's great to see you, buddy. I haven't seen or talked to you or heard you from a while. I occasionally check the crafting channel to see if there's any new projects down on the homestead, and I haven't seen anything. So hopefully you're doing well. But much love to you and the fam. I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time. But it was pretty cool when Donnie came up and visited us when his daughter was. Is she still going to school up here? I feel like I'm like, oh, that was like, I was like, oh, that wasn't that long ago. And I was like, actually, no, that might have been a couple years ago. So she might even be finished. I don't know. 3 Kreen are awesome. For sure. Yes, it's like cosplay. Exactly. Psionics, you can have a psionicist. That's fine. There could be people who really specialize in unlocking the mind's power, Stan, but I would love to see wild talents. They could even be, accessible as feats that everyone has access to. That's fine with. I'm fine with that. That's cool. That's cool. If you played Zenbola says, if you played with 10-year-old me, you started with the super critical number of wild talents. I want to say 3 and 2, but I can't remember the psionic tier names. So here's the deal. I'll give you a great example of this. I hate psionics in D&D. I love them in Dark Sun. So hopefully that helps you understand, what that means. Like, I don't want a world or need a world where we have cleric magic and we have wizard magic, which are already kind of the same. And then it's like, oh, and here's psionic magic, which is just kind of basically the same, but use PowerPoints instead. That was like what it was in 3rd edition or whatever. I hate that, right? I don't want that to be anything in there. What I want now, when you take a world where the gods are dead and magic is either punishingly slow or crazily exploitative and dangerous, now having psionics is a cool thing, because I still want my characters to do cool shit. And a world where like it's so tough and it's so difficult and people are on their own that creatures, not just humans, but literally like even like the random creatures awaken the power of the mind. There's like a Dune element to it, right? Which I also fuck with, right? And I love it. I love it in Dark Sun. I don't love it outside of Dark Sun. Always. Well, I know you're staying busy. But that's great to hear that she's still in the area. But that's awesome. I'd love to hang out and shoot the shit and catch up at some time. But yeah, I would love to have a cantrip like Psionic, or again, access through a feat or a feat line. I think that would be really cool. A Templar, if you're going to have a divine access, Paladin, Cleric, traditional Cleric, doing it through the Templar system would be really cool, for sure. PowerPoint for life, says self-confessed cynic. So dying to psionic cacti is wild. Fantastic. And yes, any setting with cannibalistic halflings is immediately S tier. Right. And that's another thing too, right? Like the elves are different and they should feel different and they should play different, and the halflings are different and they should feel. And there's no gnomes, and fuck your gnomes. You know, like if you want to be a gnome, get fucked. I want to be an aquatic frog race. No ribbits. I'm playing a froglock in EverQuest, and I think the ribbit is a cool race. I like frogs, but I'm not playing a frog in Dark Sun. No, you don't get to play that there. So we'll see. We'll see what Wizards of the Coast does. Again, trust. Well, maybe not trust, but verify. I will say the trailer gives me hope, but not for the reason that you think it does. The trailer gives me hope because it shows that they're willing to buck the current trend, right, of being safe and cute. That being said, I don't think Dark Sun doesn't necessarily have to be, even the original Dark Sun's more like 18 plus only, mature rating. It's all about gore and guts. No, it was a brutal, harsh world, and I think to a certain extent that aesthetic fits Dark Sun. But if that's what their idea of is making it mature, then we're going to have some problems. So we'll see. Is it just a veneer, or are they going to include some of the real elements that I think make Dark Sun interesting and provocative, which again is things like the nature of exploitation, using magic as a metaphor for natural resources like oil. The power of religions and cult-like behavior and the problems with, power and it corrupting people. And, of course, slavery and the existence of a slave race. All of that stuff here is, is clear. Now, to be clear, depends. Like, metal armor was the equivalent of magic armor, basically, in Dark Sun. So a high-level Dark Sun character, you were still a D&D character. You weren't playing some OSR game where you're like, well, I've been playing for 2 years and I have 21 hit points, so I can still get killed by like an orc goblin crit. No, like you were still a D&D character. You were still, even think about this. Think about how old D&D is. And like you still had like, 50, 60 hit points. That being said, high-level characters in Dark Sun probably did have metal armor because they were really badasses and awesome, and it's like the equivalent of your character has the God-slaying sword and full plate +5. Well, I mean, that's still the case, but we'll see. But we'll see. We'll see if they do moles, well. Mules. I will not call them mules. Mules, moles, take your pick. Carlos says, calling out right now, there will be rage content complaining about WotC for not having orcs and goblins in Dark Sun, like they did for the 2024 Monster Manual. Which is funny because there aren't orcs and goblins in Dark Sun. It's possible. Yeah, I mean, Ken, listen, I don't know business, but I do know people. Well, there's 3 ways that I believe have been officially, unofficially supported, which is mul, mule, and mule. And at least the knowledge I said is that calling them a mule is usually considered extremely derogatory. But mule or mul are usually the ways I think it's supposed to be pronounced. But I think people call them mules like derogatorily, right? So like calling them a mule is like kind of calling them a slur. That's, I think, the idea. Because let's be clear here. They're bred and they're sterile, just like real life mules, right? You breed donkey with a horse, you get a mule. A mule it's sterile. Now, to be clear, I hopefully you guys know my love of Dragonlance. We talked about the books at the beginning of this stream, and I do love Dragonlance. This was an abomination. This might have been the worst thing I ever read. I don't think I got the Spelljammer book. I don't have the Spelljammer book. But to be clear, I was never a Spelljammer fan, so it wasn't for me to shit on that book. I bought this, because it said Dragonlance on it, and I was curious to see what would happen. And by the way, I still think the 5e books are just gorgeous. I love the treatment that they put here. The gloss. I mean, I'm not a big fan of glossy books, but I do love that they have this glossy wrap and they have the little symbol. Where is it? Right there for the product. And in this case, it's a little Dragonlance. I love that. I love the thing. And then, I love the UV spot treatment here. Love it. This was terrible. I mean, this was so bad. I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad. But yeah, anyways, so we'll see. But, also realize the people who made this game, it was almost literally a completely different company. It was ran and operated by a different executive branch. You had Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford involved. For everything that we've talked about, Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins not involved at all with any of the new stuff that's coming out. These new people came in and they kind of, Chris and Jeremy were like, we're out, and the new people came in, and it seems like it's been a kind of a clean. So in many ways, it's like a whole new company. It's like a whole new company. I never finished. I don't know business, but I do know people. And I got to talk with the folks from Wizards of the Coast, specifically Dan Ayub. And, I believe him. I have a pretty strong bullshit alarm, and, I'm very judgy about people. And he knew his shit. He was a fan. He was a D&D fan. He knew his stuff, off camera when we were getting ready to do all his interviews and stuff. I was kind of testing the waters a little bit, trying that out. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good. So, and again, Universes Beyond is a plight. It is a cancer on Magic the Gathering. I can't wait to see what they do next. I'm excited about The Hobbit. I was excited about Lord of the Rings. It was great. They crushed it. Final Fantasy VII, or the Final Fantasy sets, was such a love letter. And it was designed well, too. And it was a great set to draft. I mean, the implications for Standard and Constructed or whatever, but fuck Constructed. I don't even like Constructed anymore. I used to play Constructed, and I don't play Casual, so I don't even care about it. I never cared about Commander, and I don't care about Commander. All I really care about is, like, the draft environment. And so when I'm playing Final Fantasy, I'm drafting Final Fantasy with Final Fantasy, and it's all Final Fantasy, and that's fine. I thought the Marvel was kind of whatever, but, like, the Avatar set was great. I mean, I think they've knocked it out of the park. And yeah, I don't like that stuff. Oh man, doing them as saga creatures, Lollipop. It was brilliant. It was so good. Brilliant. So as much as I hate Universes Beyond for Magic the Gathering, can't deny that. Look, I'm a nerd. I like nerd things. And when I see my other favorite nerd thing in my other favorite nerd thing, it's cool. I get excited. And then when they do it well, and it's not just a literal cash grab. Now, it is a cash grab because they're making a lot of money. But like, man, it's so cool. Zen Bullet says saga creatures. Yeah, it's mechanically how they expressed summons in the Final Fantasy set. It's a Magic the Gathering terminology. I'm not going to get too much into it, but needless to say, it was well done. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I think the only thing that's truly sad is that we will never see, what we used to see, where you got, the endless, where you got the endless books and support, are we going to get like 3 Dark Sun books and then never anything ever again? Probably. And is that okay? Probably. It would be cool. Maybe, maybe a book every year or 2. That would be cool, but I doubt we're going to get that, So, yeah, I mean, they seem to be, how can I say this, Carlos? Dan Ayub said things that I never thought, and he said these on camera, on the record, that I never thought I would hear from Wizards of the Coast. Things like, we fucked up. We forgot about a part of our audience. We realized that not everything we make has to be for the maximum possible audience. It's okay for us. We're big enough and our audience is large enough that we can make niche products that aren't for everyone, and we can still make that financially viable and still service a valued part of our customer base. Hearing him say that, he even used the word mea culpa and talked about taking responsibility. That was really cool. That was neat. And he did that on camera. So that's a big deal. We'll get a 6th edition. We'll get a 6th edition. I think we'll get a 6th edition. Oh, yeah. Nice, Jams. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, and he's the charge. He's the head charge of D&D. So I think that's great. And when you look at something like Star Wars Dark Sun, you're still gonna get your normal Dark Sun stuff here too. But you're when you see like, hey, this is a book for 6th edition is called Nimble. Yeah, and look, I know I say things that aren't popular on the internet. Shocking. But long story short is I like for them to change things. I like for games to be different, AD&D 2nd edition was a cleaned up, revised version of 1st edition. In modern days, we probably would have called it 1.5. But I, for one, thought the move from AD&D 2nd edition to 3rd edition to 4th edition was great. Even if you didn't like 4th edition or you didn't like 3rd edition, you have that game. Why are people so afraid of change? Everyone becomes so conservative, and I'm a liberal, and that applies to me more than just, national politics. I like for games to shake things up and change things. Oath is a board game by Cole Worley, and they did a Kickstarter a couple years ago, and it's called New Foundations, and it's coming out. And he's and a lot of people are complaining because a lot of people just want new foundations, and they're like, I just want more cards. Just give me more cards. Give me more cards and locations. Keep everything else the same. Just give me more cards. They want splat. They wanted splat. And instead, he is fundamentally changing the core experience of the game. He's not completely throwing it away, but he's changing it a lot. And people are upset because they like that game and they just want that game forever. Just give me more. MOAR, more. And that's not me. I don't want 87 classes. The game should come out 8 to 10 classes. Over the course of the game, I'm just saying your traditional D20 trad game. Over the course of the game, maybe you get to, 15 to 20. And then that's it. Tops. And even then, I think that's too many. So, yeah. Okay, number one, people do. Beowulf. People definitely still play those games. No one plays 4th edition because the game has been, pariah, and they don't even print it anymore and all that other stuff. But also, yeah, that's okay. Good. Change. We move forward. Change. Try something new. Don't just do the same thing for your whole life. When people talk about these campaigns that they've run for 30 years and they're still playing, I'm like, man, that's not for me. I think board games made today are better than board games made 10 years ago or better than board games made 20 years ago. I don't want to play Battleship, and I don't want to play Monopoly. And when I first played Settlers of Catan in the late 90s, I thought it was an amazing, incredible game. I grew up playing Ameritrash, Risk, Axis and Allies, Samurai Swords, games I still love to a certain extent. And of course, Battleship and all those other Monopolies and garbage games. And I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. This is so incredible. This is so different. Carcassonne. Now I look at Catan and Carcassonne, and I don't even want to play those games anymore because I'm like, yeah, there's better. People have learned. We have whole generations of people who grew up with Catan, and then they made better games. So yeah, better. It's iterative design. So, yeah. Well, I mean, Big Die. I mean, how else to say this? I mean, everyone from Wizards of the Coast was at GaryCon. Luke Gygax was part of their keynote. He's doing a big Greyhawk release. I mean, they definitely seem to have realized that they went, I think, a step too far in sort of losing. And maybe, the OSR has been doing really well, and I'm sure that's to some extent affected their sales. They're still a company. Look, they're still trying to get your money. They're not like the good guy. I'm not going to ever say a corporation is a good guy. Fuck corporations. But there's ways that you can make money and still, do things for the betterment of a community and for an audience, which I think D&D definitely is. So yeah, I think it was an interesting series of events. There was stuff out that came out. Oh, and by the way, I said this on thing. The biggest surprise for me is, and I didn't get to see it, but somebody said that, and they showed me a picture. Edge Studios is announced and had a pre-production model that they are releasing a Scorpion book for Legend of the Five Rings, which will finally complete all 7 clan books, which I never thought would happen because I thought the game is basically dead. No one plays it. Even the people who play it hate it. And so even though I think it's great, but even I will be the first to admit it's undercooked. And the last couple of books have been terrible. Don't buy them. They're terrible. The first ones were okay. Shadowlands was a good book. Court of Stone was a little disappointing. The Lion book, Fields of Victory, really great. The Phoenix book, the Realms of Heaven and Earth or whatever, great book. The Dragon book, no. The Unicorn book, no. And I have no faith for the Scorpion book. What clan did I forget there? No, that's all of them. Anyways, and the original books that came out, the Ronin book, and the Emerald Empire book were fantastic. The art in Legend of the Five Rings is incredible. I don't know if they're still using the same artists or whatever. Oh, I said Courts of Stone. That's the problem, Carlos. The Crane book was called Courts of Stone, and it was about castles. It wasn't about the crane. I mean, it was theoretically about the crane, but it wasn't. It was about castles, which was stupid. Well, the Unicorn book just came out, and it was terrible. The Dragon book, Writ of the Wilds, well, technically, the Fields of Victory book was released under Edge, but I think it was still written when they were part of Final Fantasy Flight. But Children of the Five Winds and Writ of the Wilds were both terrible. So, anyways. I know that, but if they do a new edition of L5R, they'll probably go back to Roll and Keep to make all the internet people happy. And I think that Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition is so incredible and good. Now, granted, I think it needs to be helped and it needs to be improved, and it's inspired me in all of my ideas for whatever games I would ever make in the future. But for that reason, I'm thankful for it, and I think it's fantastic. But yeah, I don't want to be mean-spirited, but I hope Edge loses Star Wars. I don't think Edge is a good company. Full stop. Sorry, Edge. They'll never sponsor me, but whatever. I just don't think that they make good games, and I don't think, No, I don't think so, but Magus, I don't know. I play board games, and I'm used to symbols, and I have, I don't know. It's not a big deal for me. It needs a significant, like if they made a 6th edition that was a legitimately cleaned up, refocused, rebalanced, let it cook in the oven a little bit more version of 5th edition, I would love that, but they'll never do that. So you're ready to go to Luca Comics? Well, I mean, Need Games invited. They said, "Oh, you need to come." He's like, "You should come to hang out," because I've seen Nico at Gamma, GaryCon, and now GenCon, and he's from Italy, so it's crazy to see him that many times. But my God, 280,000 people. GenCon, the Indianapolis Convention Center can't hold GenCon. Luca, the whole city can't hold that many people. It's absolutely insane. Helmet, that's okay. I'm going to go too. So all I'll say is I unexpectedly enjoyed this Gen Con. Steve and I had a great time. Dinners were great. Our Airbnb was fantastic. Parking was a breeze. We got great spots every day. We used Spot Hero to get really close to the convention center. Even got some really great deals, where I was paying less to park valet than it would have cost me to park on the street. So it was amazing. You know, Darrington Press, Free League, Roll for Combat, all, you know, hooked me up with some free swag and some free games and gifts. So that was unexpected and was awesome. I got to see a handful of people, not as many people as I would like. I did get to talk. I got to meet Mike Underwood. We talked briefly. In fact, Mike Underwood just did, I was just watching his VOD today. He shouted me out in the beginning when he was talking about going to the Diana Jones Awards. And he's like, oh, and I got to, you know, he's like, and I finally got to meet Derek Melinda, and we got to talk for a little bit, and that was really cool. Got to meet a couple of patrons that were there. Not as many as I would like. Everyone was really busy. I was really busy. Got to spend time with Steven and Jess. Professor was there and got to be part of the Deathbringer hype, which was a lot of fun, and to see all the people who are really super passionate about it, and you know, just to be, I'm not part of the team or anything like that, but it was cool, you know, to be kind of like, hey, we've got a really great Kickstarter, and it was really cool. It's really cool, kind of crazy how many doors that suddenly opens up, not for me, but for like the people involved. And yeah, you know, I ran into some of my convention friends and all that other stuff. Well, what happened is that the guy who owns Elric is, I don't think he's dead, but I think he's like old or something. I don't know. Michael Moorcock apparently was just like, you know what? I want to make money and cash out. And he like let everybody get it. So like Free League got it. Goodman Games got it. I think there's maybe even a third person that's getting it. I think there's going to be a bunch. You're going to see a bunch of board games. And apparently, I guess he just decided to cash in. So that's what happened. He just started licensing it to basically anybody who wanted it. So, by the way, the same thing happened with Lord of the Rings. Middle-earth Enterprise, it's not like there was a shortage of Lord of the Rings-inspired games, but Middle-earth Enterprises, which was owned by basically the Tolkien family, was pretty, was known for being very restrictive. Well, now that it's part of Embracer Group, you're going to see fucking Lord of the Rings stapled on everything. And already at Gen Con, we saw it stapled on everything. It's going to be even more in the zeitgeist of gaming. So expect to see it everywhere. So. Oh, I would be remiss of saying this. We did learn from Tor that's Tor of Burning Wheel HQ and of Torchbearer author fame. These are going out of print. So, if you want Burning Wheel Gold, you don't need the codex, and you should own this book. This is like the Bible in the nightstand. Okay, it even looks like a Bible in the nightstand. It reminds me of that Bible that's that they, I don't know who puts it there. I don't know if it's the Mormons or whatever, but it reminds me of the Bible in the nightstand. Everyone should have this book, and like the Bible, most people don't read it. And maybe you should. And if you do read it, maybe you shouldn't read the words literally, but more of like, what idea are they trying to espouse? Now, I don't know if it's still the case, but when I bought this book, it was, Jesus Christ. When I bought this book, it was $25, which is disturbing for Burning Wheel Gold. But Burning Wheel, this is not, it's a weird size. I don't think it's any official size. It's definitely not A4 or A5, I should say. Was there any new mentions of Genesis or Cortex Prime Edition? Jermaine, I did not know of anything. I didn't hear of anything. The physical is already sold out on their site. Ouch. Well, if you have a local place that these are available, that's going to be the place to get it, and that's going to be it. I mean, Burning Wheel never printed a huge amount of stuff, but it sounds like they already sold out because they haven't been printing it, and it's going out of print. So, Shinobi, that is a totally reasonable take for Burning Wheel. We are going to be doing a Burning Wheel. It's not a first look because obviously I've played the game and I've owned the game for years. This is the Burning Wheel Gold. This is the original. This is the original Burning Wheel. This is the character. This is book 1, and then this is the character burner, and then this is the adventure burner. But we're going to do a deep dive into it. It's been a long time coming, and we're not going to cover everything in it, but we're just going to at least cover it because so much of what I love from even Oathhammer, right? Oathhammer was inspired by Burning Wheel, and then a lot of the mechanics that I want to incorporate into my game are kind of inspired by Burning Wheel as well. Of course, I love Torchbearer, and Mouse Guard, which are both basically Burning Wheel light. But Should be interesting. So here's what the plan is going forward. I have a family vacation coming up, and then a couple weeks after that, I'm going to Dungeons and Cabins. So again, con season is still not over yet. Apparently now we're talking about obviously we're going to be going to PAX Unplugged. I think that's in November. But there's also talk of us going to GameHole Con. So we'll see what is going on in terms of the conventions. In the meantime, I'm going to keep trying to cover stuff. We're going to get some people on. When would the Jess stream occur? I have no idea what Jess's travel schedule is. I'd have to talk to Jess. Jess doesn't even know about this tip goal, other than to say, Jess messaged me when I said, oh, maybe we're talking about Vampire. And she was like, hey, she's like, do you want me to come on? So she's at least open to the idea. But in terms of scheduling, I don't know. I'm not sure about what's happening Sunday. In theory, I still need to figure out if we're playing the One Ring. I think most of my players are in. I just have to double check with something. And talk to Bob, send him a message after we win our goal. And it sounds like Bob is free and is going to come over on Sunday. So we might get 2 streams on Sunday if we do play the One Ring. And then we're going to talk about Free League. We'll talk about the Free League and the adjustments. I want to hear what's going on with the Dragon Tide campaign. And we're going to be doing a unboxing and giveaway of Invincible. So we're kind of sponsored, supported by the folks over at Vex Mortis. We'll have a link and a coupon code during the stream. But they are a new online gaming retailer that's kind of specializing in other things than just mainstream RPGs, and they like war games too. And they happen to be a patron, so we're going to give them a plug and give them a shout out. Apparently they have an affiliate link for us too, so if you buy from them, you'll also be helping out me a little bit. And it doesn't cost you any extra money, but mostly it's just to help out a patron in their new endeavor. But they sent us a copy over to give away, so we're going to be unboxing Bob's copy, and then we're going to be giving away a copy as well. So it'll be fun, and that should happen Sunday. I just got to confirm with Bob and make double checked. Ryan says, I'm employed. I'd rather be doing what you're doing. All right, well, that's true, Ryan, but also you can pay your bills every month, including my bill, which you're paying. The way I like to think of it is like every one of my legends, I don't know how many I have right now. I've lost a couple. Times are tough for everybody. That's fine. Legend, by the way, is my $100 a month level. But over the course of a year, that's $1,200. So like every one of my legends basically pays my housing costs for a month. That's a crazy way of thinking about it, but that is the case. It's kind of like how my Twitch Prime subs. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to me on Twitch, you should, because it's free. But that pays for my monthly medical insurance premium, which of course I have to pay completely out of pocket. There are no more subsidies. And, I don't have a job that's helping me pay for those medical insurance subsidies. Have you seen the Amaranth Dragon Bane? I feel like Reddit has changed something about their website. You can't like open their images in new tabs. Oh, by the way, looks like Nosferatu won our poll. Thank you. I don't know why we didn't get the pop-up. Maybe I don't have my Twitch alerts. I might not have my Twitch alerts on. Oh, they should be on. Okay. Is this what we're talking about? I don't know what this is. Anyways. Well, this is the only thing that they have here, so. I will say I got to see the Arkland book and the Book of Magic in person at the Free League booth, and they look great. All the Dragonbane books all have like they feel great in the hand. They're letter size, but I think they're letter size. But they're not super thick, and so they feel very, very portable. They're very, I don't know, they're very good. It reminds me of the old Torchbearer book, which I just love in the hand. It feels so good. I don't know where my Torchbearer, my original Torchbearer book, not the new one. The new one is A5 Digest, but the old one was letter, and I loved it. It's such a good book. Feels great. Just like the One Ring books. I mean, my God, these books are so beautiful. I mean, if you need to just pick up one of these books, feel the cover, feel the texture, feel it thick, and then the pages, the paper. I mean, it's just incredible. Such an experience. Yeah, the original Torchbearer. I don't know where my Torchbearer. Oh, here. No, that's not it. Where the hell is my Torchbearer? Oh, here it is. Yeah, so this is the original. This is the original Torchbearer, and like it's not, it's only mine actually got chewed by one of my dogs. That's the kind of play that we go through. It got kind of chewed up a little bit, so unfortunately, it's such a delight. It's all black and white, and it's just a delightful game. Anyways, I'm a weirdo though. I like second edition, I do, but in many ways I like first edition better. So, anyways. That is going to do it for me. I appreciate everybody who came out and hung out with us tonight. Appreciate everybody who supported the chat. Thank you for 7 months of adventure, Testy Trekkie. Thank you for the bits, DM Rawlings. Tips from Mark, Scotty. Super chats from Lion's Head, Luke, Osley, and Dadon. So I really appreciate everybody for coming out and supporting me tonight. I also find it much cheaper, Lollipop, which is also nice. But I thank all of you for hanging out with me. Thank you for joining me on the Gen Con journey. We were doing a lot of fun streams there from the show floor, from the Lucas Oil Stadium. Always a good time, and I always appreciate hanging out with you guys, whether I'm in the middle of the ocean or we're Vegas on the beach. I love to hang out and talk RPGs with you guys, and of course, Gen Con is always an exciting time. And for a long time, Gen Con became really sad for me because all my friends kind of left and weren't coming anymore, and I was kind of on my own. And it's been kind of cool, between the Patreon and the content creator community, folks like Jess Redicop and Stephen Glicker. It's nice to have kind of a crew. And of course, when the industry is thriving and people are excited to be there, it feels good too. So excited for all of you to join me on the next journey. And we'll be back next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night.